We're going to call this meeting to order. This is the regularly scheduled City Council meeting. It is July 28, 2026. It is 6:10 p.m. May I have a roll call?
Council Agency Authority Member Stockton.
Here.
Ritchie.
Here.
Chapman.
Here.
Fremont.
Here.
Wiley. Here. Vice Mayor, Vice Chair Silva. Mayor, Chair Carley.
Here. If you're able, will you please stand for a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Stockton, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we got a full house tonight. It's always nice when there is some civic engagement. There's a lot on this agenda. But before I get started, I just want to give a quick update so that you're aware. This is our first inaugural meeting where we are operating with remote access under state law. So bear with us if there's some interruptions or some challenges, because we're working through it as well. Even in our special session at 4:30, the very first item, there was a technical difficulty, so we had to work through it. So we're navigating it, but what it does do is it allows those who can't be in person also to be able to attend remotely. That's part of the change in the state law, and we're working through that. With that, there's no reports out on closed session tonight, and I'm looking to see if there's any changes to tonight's agenda.
No changes.
All right, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor? Aye. Next, we'll move on to reports of the City Council. Any member up here having any updates from any boards or committees and/or any other updates? I see lights, so I'm going to move to Councilmember Chapman.
Thank you. Good evening. Several things. I would like to report that on July the 2nd, the Citizens Advisory Committee for the two prisons, which I am currently the chair, we met, and there were a couple of things that I would like to share that took place or that I would like to mention. On Thursday, they had family night and backpack gathering for the employees at the prison. It wasn't for the inmates, it was for the employees, for their staff. There are some of them who have a need. They're in need. And so they have formed a 501.
Good to hear you. Can you speak up, please?
Okay, let's try this again. Not yet? No? Then tech.
Yeah. So, yeah, your microphone's on, so let's see. Any technical difficulty back there?
Turn it up. Okay, shall I continue? And I'll speak even louder. All right, I had mentioned that I'm the chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee for both of the prisons here in Vacaville. They have created a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and the purpose of the nonprofit is to assist the employees at the prison. It's not for the inmates, it's for the employees. Some of them, their wages are not that significant, and so they have issues the same as the rest of us. So they found a need to create that nonprofit. And then on Thursday evening, they had a backpack project along with family night. And it was well attended, many children there, they had face painting, it was well organized. So if you have means to support 501c3s, I would ask that you consider their nonprofit organization that has been established. And then on July the 9th, we had our handbook committee meeting here at City Hall. And that was the three of us, yes, in attendance. And that is something that has been newly established by the city manager. Just want to make mention of that. On July the 11th, T-Ball had their grand opening, and I must say this year I missed the ball on the pole. But the children, the families came out to support the children. It was well attended. It was very nice. On July the 12th, oh, yes, July the 12th. Some of you might have known Ed Goldberg. He was a police officer here at Vacaville. He passed recently, and they had his memorial. I wasn't able to attend it, but he was a wonderful person, well-liked throughout the community. When I was chairing the first 5 years of the Cultural Diversity Fair, he was the representative from the police department, and a remarkable individual, so I wanted to make mention of his passing. On June 25th, the Chamber had their Champions Gala.
Night of the Champions Gala.
A Night of the Champions Gala, and would like to let it be known that our own Angelina over there was one of the honorees, and so congratulations for that. On July the 1st, each summer we have summer at City Hall for our high school students. They had their graduation on July the 1st, and it was held at the United Cultural Center, well attended by the parents. If they had tried to have it here in the chamber, they wouldn't have had enough seating capacity. Remarkable, highly exceptional, very exceptional students that went through the program. Each year they are exceptional, but this group, they really were at the top of the game. And I believe that is all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Councilmember Webb.
Now it's on, thank you. Just a couple quick things. I've been on the TRAP board for quite a few years, and that's Travis Regional Armed Forces Committee. And so just recently, I went to the retreat because I will be serving on the executive board for TRAP. And so I'll have more information about the events and things that they do. And what that tries to do is get the community involved with things that are happening on the base, so we know how we can help the airmen and the other people at base be comfortable in Vacaville. And I will tell you that most of the meetings I go to say that they all say how happy they are to be at Travis and how welcoming the community has been. So let's keep that up, because they feel comfortable being here. And they're always looking for housing, if that's available. And then I'm also part of the Yolo Solana Air Quality Management District, and they just recently purchased an electric van with their grant money for the YOLO food bank. And so now the food bank will be able to deliver groceries with a new electric van. So those are two accomplishments from TRAP and the Air Quality Board.
And Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, thank you. I sit on CAP Solano, which is a joint powers authority that addresses homelessness on a regional level. We recently just got a new executive director, Stephanie Weaver. She comes from a background as a U.S. Army vet that worked in mental health. She's been the admin of Veteran Affairs Homes of California in both Yountville and in L.A., and she presented at the last meeting. Very impressive woman. I have invited her to come and meet the council and talk to the council about homeless issues that are specific to to our city, and we'll let council know and work with staff to try to arrange when that will be. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, and I see that there are some people here from the Keep Vacaville Safe group. The California Energy Commission just released a 1,400-page document recommending the approval of a battery energy storage system project on Kilkenny Road. And while this does not fall within the city limits of Vacaville, jurisdictional lines don't always care about the safety of the surrounding communities. And so I know that there is a period of time right now where anyone that would like to leave comments to discuss their concerns related to that being next to a hospital, next to a freeway, next to homes, can do that. For more information about some of the concerns surrounding this project, you can visit a Facebook group called Keep Vacaville Safe, and I recognize that there are some people here. I will tell you that I do share concerns. I think that our council has our city, under our council's direction, has one of the most stringent and safest ordinances as it relates to the battery energy storage system projects and how they impact our communities and the safety risks that they create for us. And so unfortunately, this 205 waiver through the California Energy Commission can circumvent local control by going through that state process. But that's not to say that we still don't have a voice. I want to let the public that is here today or watching at home know that our stance, collectively as a council, I don't believe has changed as it relates to lithium-ion battery energy storage projects like what is being proposed with this Corby project, and that I plan to stand up and also advocate on behalf of our neighbors that are in the county that border us. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'll echo at least the issue of the state's desire to push through, and that's some of the legislation that we're all suffering from. We lose that local control. I also believe, to our city staff and through our city manager, we're reviewing what measures we can take and also drafting on something on behalf of the entire council on behalf of the city of Vacaville. So I think it's an important thing. But to the public, everyone can speak up, and I think the advantage that we have is the work that the Keep Vacaville Safe group has done, has demonstrated how you can take something that is, first of all, unknown, has a lot of fear, to study it. This council created a moratorium and then worked with city staff to create the ordinance that becomes the example statewide. And the advantage is for our public is if you choose to do this and you're wanting to lean in, the issue is when the state's trying to take over that moment of local control. What is our position? If we were simply saying we're against it, we're against everything, it becomes easier, and we predicted this a while back, it becomes easier for them to say, well, you're just against it. But thankfully to the team, Sarah, I see you in the room, it's really important to know that identifying what it is that you really are against allowed us to move forward with creating the ordinance. And so now the state has to look at it, yes, an unelected board, and focus on, well, we're not against it. In fact, we have an ordinance that says that you can do it in the city limits of Vacaville. It's just that we're focusing on the safety of issues. And lithium-ion is proven time and time again to have thermal runaway. And so thank you to our community, and I too will be doing the same thing. Separate from that, I think it's also important, and to our city manager, I don't know if you were going to speak on this, and so if I steal some of your thunder, and maybe you're going to add to it, please do. As a city, I have said this in the past, one of the challenges we've had for 2 years is we have been operating as a city without a master tax sharing agreement between the city of Vacaville and the county of Solano. It was, call it what you will, it was suspended, it was eliminated 2 years ago in August of '24. And it affected all 7 cities. And what does it mean? It means that whenever there is, whether a commercial development or a residential development, or if there's an annexation or a de-annexation, or if there's issues with how you bring in SID water, we've seen some of the projects. everything that we do that touches any of that, a lot of times would go to LAFCO because they're the agency within the county. But to do that, then everything now has to go through the county. So imagine all our business has to be agendized through the Solano County Board of Supervisors. So what we've effectively done is all 7 mayors in this last month, during our mayor's meeting, we voted through the work, thank you to our city manager, Chaudhry, to lead the course of action to have a letter drafted to the county. The goal is to work with the county and the County Board of Supervisors to create the future pathway so that we can standardize. And we've been under a standard tax sharing agreement for since what, 2000?
Since April of 2000.
2000. So we've been operating under a good structure. And now for the last 2 years, this has created delays that could be 6-9 months to a basic project that has to go through a LAFCO. So the good news is all 7 cities and the county will be working towards this, and so that we have a good process moving forward. But it took a little while, but thank you. I just want to say thank you for all the work that you've done, because you've had to extend beyond just the city and all the other city managers and all the 7 city mayors. So just wanted to make sure that the council is aware of it. We're moving forward on it. It doesn't mean we have it. It just means that we're all at the table, and those negotiations will begin. And that comes down to what is the revenue sharing between the city, what is the city's component of it, and what is the county's component of it for the essential services that we must provide. With that, I will move on, seeing no other lights, to the reports of the city manager.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and community. I do have 3 announcements today. First of all, since it's our only meeting in July and we had a great 4th of July celebration, I do want to acknowledge that's a really great community event that brings everybody together, and we had yet another safe and successful event. I'd like to extend my thanks to Public Fire Department, Police Department, Public Works, Parks and Rec, and many other staff members, volunteers, and community sponsors that make that event happen. So thank you to all of you for another successful event. I do want to make 2 announcements on 1 promotion and 1 new hire. We have hired a brand new city-created information technology department. We have hired our IT director, Gurinder Baines. Are you here? You can please stand up or raise your hand. Thank you. So Gurinder joins us from the city of Vacaville as our director of IT with more than 20 years of experience leading technology strategy, cybersecurity, and digital transformation projects in public sector. Prior to joining Vacaville, he served as the deputy CIO for City of Oakland, and where he oversaw enterprise IT operations, critical infrastructure, cybersecurity, and technology services supporting public safety and city departments. He has also held technology leadership roles with California Student Aid Commission, Legislative Data Center, and public organizations, leading large-scale modernization and innovation initiatives. He's a project management professional certified, also certified in security aspects, and is really passionate about building high-performing teams and strengthening the technology for the city. So welcome, Gurinder. The other announcement I have is promotion for Daniel Sutton. He was our engineering manager and has been recently promoted to be the new Assistant Director of Public Works for the maintenance groups. Many of us are already familiar with him and his longstanding service to City of Vacaville. We believe his experience, leadership, and institutional knowledge will be a tremendous asset to our corporation yard, Public Works Department, and the city as a whole. And he has consistently appreciated for his attention to detail, strong work ethic, professionalism, and an approachable can-do attitude. So please join me in congratulating Daniel Sutton on his well-deserved appointment in the new role leading the staff. Those are my updates for today. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you for joining us. And also for the promotion. So these are all good news, and I know sometimes it's hard when there's movements and retirements, but we welcome you. Thank you for joining us, and appreciate all the good work that I know is coming. I had the privilege of meeting with you, and so I'm very excited about what you'll bring here. So welcome. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to, there are no presentations tonight, so we're going to move on to the consent calendar. There is, I don't know the number of them, but we go from 9A to 9Q. And so any member of the council wishing to pull any of these items? Councilmember Wiley?
I want to pull 9.
Sorry. 9C? Okay. Wait a second. So we have a 9C. Any member of the public wishing to pull an item for discussion? And what item would that be? 9K. 9K? 9K. Seeing no one else, I'm looking for a motion from the council to approve the consent calendar from 9A to 9Q minus 9C and 9K, if I have that correct.
I move for the approval.
You move it, and we have a second. Councilmember Ritchie? All in favor? Aye. Now, I want to throw one more piece into this because this is the lessons learned. Anyone online wishing to pull an item? See, I caught that one. No one online wishing to pull an item. So again, you're going to see some new parts of our process. So with that, we have pulled 2 items for discussion, 9C.
Mayor, you didn't vote on the.
Oh, I didn't vote on it. See, I caught the one piece, but we didn't vote on it. So all in favor? Aye. Opposed? So we need to then address 9C and 9K. So we'll move on to 9C.
All right. It's been about 2 years since this item came before us and we discussed it, and it was the Cairo selling the property in Roberts Ranch. And so I just had some questions that I didn't get a chance to ask ahead of time, so I wanted to discuss it since it had been an item that a lot of people were interested in. So I guess when we first discussed it, I just want to be clear that Kairos had school property and then they're selling the parcel to then to be used for developing houses. And so at that time, we talked about different types of houses and asked questions about ADUs and maybe kind of more affordable housing. And at that time, it was, no, it's going to be low, medium density. And so I wonder if there was any change or that in the 2 years since we had put other ideas forward, and then what the community input was to sell, I mean, is the community all fine with selling that and having those houses? And then because the train has been something that's come up a lot of time at Roberts Ranch, is this anywhere close to where the train is, or is this not the same near the parcel with the train? And then were ADUs any part of it, because we've kind of discussed with ADUs as well. And then lastly, in our District 6, Travis Unified has a school property that they haven't built on. Would this then open the door for any other school district to have property if they found a developer to be able to do the same thing? Or is this partly because it's a charter school and not a public school? So if you could answer those questions, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Wiley. So to background this a bit, it was in 2024 that the council considered a merit hearing about whether or not to allow the application to be filed. And after 2 separate council meetings, the council did vote to support the general plan amendment initiation process. Time has passed since then, and it was only in April of this year that the developer finally filed the development applications. The developer is Regis. They are purchasing the land from Kairos, and they've come in with a development plan and with a bunch of other materials, general plan amendment, rezoning, house lot layouts, and that kind of thing. So a lot of the questions you asked are really not on the agenda this evening because the project's not before the council, but the design that currently came in went through a 30-day review with staff. Staff has already issued a detailed comment letter on the project, which is in the public record. Anyone can access it. It's an incomplete application. This evening's item is about the applicant funding a variety of contracts that will allow staff to process this application. So it'll still be our department leading it. I have a project manager assigned to it, but because we're down 4 planners right now, this will allow us to pick up a contract planner who's helping on the East of Leisure project as well, and also it will fund the necessary environmental studies. So I guess the last thing I'll say before I'll talk about the tree in a second. We're at the very beginning of the development review process. As we told the developer in the letter, we will be having a neighborhood meeting and we will be broadly advertising that. We want to get the consultant on board because we need some support just getting everything organized and out there. But there will absolutely be an early neighborhood meeting, again, as soon as we get these contracts done, get our consultant on board, and we're expecting to get public comment and to integrate that into the process. Train, it's not isolated from the train tracks, but it's not like immediately adjacent to the train tracks. But as City Manager Chaudhry shared, I think at the last council meeting, we are now underway with the quiet zone study, and that will honestly benefit everybody in that part of town if it turns out to be feasible and we can make some improvements. I don't think there's any ADUs included in the initial design to answer that last question, but again, we've given comments on the initial design, and now we're going to be getting in revised plans and also getting public input.
And it is low to medium density. And then what about if Travis wishes to do something similar, could anyone do it, or is it public versus private, or what?
If Travis would like to develop their site that they own with something different than a school, they could come to the city and make that request. They have not made that request, and we really haven't had any detailed discussions about that. But if the land is in the city of Vacaville and it's designated for a school, that would come to council if that was something that they wanted to pursue.
All right, thank you very much. And if it's open, if anybody else has a question. Correct.
I don't see any other questions from the council. I will go ahead and open it up to the public for any comments. Seeing none, do we have anyone online wishing to comment? All right, so with that.
My light on. My light's on.
Oh, the system's not working exactly correct. I do see that. Normally it's flashing.
Okay.
Councilmember Chapman.
Thank you. Question. With Kairos being a charter school, and they're chartered through Vacaville Unified School District, shouldn't this request be coming from the school district rather than from Kairos?
This request is coming from the property owner, and this is not a property that Vacaville Unified owns. I think the other thing that's important to note as part of our development review process, this proposal was sent to Vacaville Unified and all the other local agencies, and so they've had the opportunity to comment on this, and we haven't received any comments regarding concerns about this particular proposal.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions from the council. I would entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
So I have a motion, and I believe Councilmember Freeman was second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you very much. I will move on to the other item that was pulled, 9K. And that, I believe, is from the floor. So, sir, why don't you come forward?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. You're going to have to forgive me because I flew in from LA and my eyes are a little blurry because I didn't bring my glasses. So what we have before us on 9K is a resolution to authorize a city manager or their designee to execute a third amendment to the agreement for the provisions of the fixed route, demand response, and paratransit services between the City of Vacaville and First Transit. And the request is over $10 million, a little over $3 million each year for 3 years. This is their request. This would be our request. As you can see on the video, you see City Coach Bus. To my right, those are our members, local Teamsters Local 315 members that drive the buses for the City of Vacaville. They take your children to school, they take the elderly, they pick up the disabled, and they do everything they can in their power to make sure that public safety, and you could even say go as far as infrastructure, because they are the ones that are there day in and day out. My ask is that we aren't the lowest paid people in Vacaville. That would be my ask. And until we can get everything resolved, I would request that this funding be pushed off until we can get our situation resolved. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now that the item's been pulled, is there any updated response from city staff?
No update from our side.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and open up to the council for any further discussion, and then from there move it, also opened up. I know you pulled it, but maybe somebody else in the public wants to speak on this issue. Anyone online? All right. I would entertain a motion then. Do you have a question?
Should we not
Question.
say we cannot?
Yeah, well, hold on a second. Councilmember Stockton?
Is there anything staff contractually about us being involved in some sort of labor dispute between them and First Transit?
I would like to bring our Public Works Director to speak on that. I don't think as staff we can get involved in the labor negotiations between third parties.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. As far as staff is concerned, this is not something that we feel that we should get involved in. This is a labor dispute between a company and their employees, and we do not feel that this is something that the city should be involved in.
Any other questions?
When is the timeline for approval for us to approve this? Our contract with First Transit, not the labor negotiation.
Well, the contract is going to be up.
Well, I can speak to that. The contract expires this Friday.
Thank you. That's all.
Councilmember Wiley?
I just wondered if anyone from Transdev is here or not.
I don't believe that there is. Councilmember Chapman?
Yes. He's coming back to say something. Am I answering my question?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Carmen Alba. I'm Senior Vice President for the Northwest region. I live in the region. I live in Sacramento. I'm proud to oversee this relationship with this city for almost 20 years. Because we have an ongoing labor negotiations, I cannot share a lot of details, but there are a few things that I'd like to share with you today. Number one, our team has been negotiating in good faith with the Teamsters for months. In the last 30 days, we have requested multiple meetings to continue negotiations. Number two, over the last 4 years, the current CBA includes a 38% increase over 4 years. Number three, with the current wage scale as it is today, we are fully staffed. We do not have challenges with hiring and recruiting, or recruiting and hiring. And number four, the most recent passenger survey results were 94% client satisfaction. We will continue to negotiate with our union partners. That's my commitment to you today. We look forward to a resolution that best serves the city. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Councilmember Wiley?
I think it's really essential that we have this bus service for our people, and if there's a 94% satisfaction, it sounds like the bus drivers are doing a good job. It's just hard when people, are working a full-time job and still have trouble making ends meet. So I just want everyone to have a living wage, and we might not have an opening now, but we want to make sure that people are not a lot of turnover. So thank the bus drivers for the 95% satisfaction.
Councilmember Chapman, I think you were.
Thank you.
There
Yes.
we go.
They were, okay, I want to get an absolute on what we can and cannot do. So is this something I can ask, should ask city manager to check with the attorney? Are we able legally to take action on this item? It's my understanding that we cannot, under any circumstance, get involved between labor negotiations. But I want them to know that I support and appreciate the work that you're doing, but I believe we have to stay legal. We have to be compliant, and so.
Well, I'll just add, and maybe you can comment, but our responsibility is really to procure quality transit. And so I think what we learned from the previous meeting is look, if we had staff internally, we negotiate with our employees. This is a third-party contract, and I appreciate the fact that when people drive around the city of Vacaville, what they see is they say buses, and it says the city of Vacaville. So the public doesn't know. All they know is that we're providing what I believe is exceptional service. I know this because as I sit as part of the STA board, Vacaville is often demonstrated among the discussion is do it like Vacaville does it. And so we're proud of what we have here, and what that really relates to is the people behind it, which happens to be workers and drivers that are part of a bargaining unit that's outside of our control. So this is kind of where the crosshairs is. So whatever the city attorney can advise, I just know that it's important for us. Our role as a council is to provide the long-term sustainability of a service, just like any other city would. But what has come to us is that there is tension, because not uncommon that there's labor agreements that do occur between third-party contractors and their employees that we contract with. So we have this interesting relationship, and I know this item was pulled last time because it was information that we weren't aware of. But the reality is at some point, our responsibility also is to the two front. We want good service, but the other is we have a responsibility to the money that we're spending. And if we're going to spend a lot more money, the encouragement for me is I want to see an amicable relationship. And if there's something that has to come back, yes. But at the end of the day, I also don't want to jeopardize, I think it's to your question, our responsibility as a council that operates a service for the residents of Vacaville under a structure. So it's an interesting place to be. And what I want to be careful is for us to lean in and onto something that then can be viewed as we are shaping it. I think there's enough attention that's been brought to it. We want good people working for our city, and we certainly appreciate the Teamsters and what they do. And I think most people would have never known that the drivers aren't actual employees of the city, but I say thank you. So this is just sometimes the way it works. But anyway, is there anything else that you wanted to comment on from our city attorney?
The legal question I heard was, is the council allowed to act on this evening? Yes, it's the contract was competitively bid in 2021. This amendment to extend it was part of the original agreement, so it is within your legal authority. It's been properly noticed to the public, and so you may act on it tonight.
Councilmember Stockton.
Yeah, I just had one more question for the gentleman right here. Sorry to make you get up. I just heard the other young lady say that they've reached out to you over the last few months to speak with you. Have you actually met with them?
We've had conversations, but we have not actually had any kind of response to resolve this issue. I didn't come here tonight to air our laundry. I'm just asking that they don't approve 9K. But now that Ms. Alba got up and said what she said, it's not factual, okay? But this is not the time nor the place. If you don't approve 9K, I'm still gonna sleep good, okay? But I'm not here to air our laundry. That's our issue. As a representative of our bus drivers, I have a right to ask that you do not provide their funding. And that's all. That is the end. That's all I'm asking for.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Did you have your light back on? Sometimes they're coming on and sometimes they're not.
But now I do have another question, though. What is the impact? What's the effect if we do not approve item 9K?
So on Friday, our agreement with Purse Transit, which has been acquired by TransDev, will expire. So we won't be in a contractual agreement with them as of Friday, which means that we, as the city, would then be negotiating a separate issue, which is the ongoing bus services for the city of Vacaville. So that has a couple of different implications. I think that there could be like a month-to-month service that could be acquired with them, but that comes at a significant cost to the city. The staff that has worked on this agreement has negotiated a fair cost to the city for the ongoing delivery of these services to our residents. Staff is recommending that the council approve the contract amendment that's been included in the staff report. And so that's kind of what happens. And then we would be back to the drawing board. That term that we have secured as a matter of the original 2021 agreement that allows for this 3-year extension, that would expire and go away. So we would be kind of starting over with our negotiations with the company. It can be anything from we come to an agreement right away, or we have to not have bus services while we competitively bid and get some bids from different bus companies, which would have an impact on the residents that utilize the transit services.
And I can add on to that. In addition to all of that, we also have some federal funding implications because federal procurement regulations, grant cost principles, and labor law strictly prohibit transit agencies from utilizing federal funds to resolve third-party labor disputes. So it can jeopardize our federal funding. It will also have impact on setting up precedents, which is not appreciated by the federal government. And it also will have a huge impact on our transit budget because we only have limited funding for this service from sources like TDA and FTA. So any unnecessary contract increase or a reduction will reduce our ability to address even future needs. So there's a lot of cost implications to the city, especially in the time when we're facing the fiscal deficit.
I would like to make a motion.
Yeah, so this would be a good time to make a motion, so go ahead.
Okay. Based upon what has been shared by staff, I am going to make the motion that we approve item 9K. I don't want anyone to be without a job. I don't want to jeopardize transportation for the residents of Vacaville. And since it has been reviewed by staff, I'm making the motion that we go ahead and approve.
All right. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Well, I think this, let's go ahead and do a roll call.
Based on the financials, yes.
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 Yes. What I'd like to do, the motion passes, but what I'd like to do is say, there's some things that we learned over the last month. Listen, I appreciate everything that you all do, and what I'm hoping for is a resolution, like we would all do. We all have a fiduciary responsibility to the local taxpayers. I recognize that there's a conflict here that needs to be resolved, because the last thing that I want to do is see the buses stop, and the last thing that I want to do is to lose good drivers. And so you brought it to our attention. My hope is that our third-party company that we use, who's done an exceptional job, somehow finds a way to solve this. And the goal here is not to entangle our responsibilities both to the local taxpayers, but also to the funding sources that can cost us more money. So sometimes it's a difficult decision and a choice, but in this case, it's not choosing one over the other. It's believing that there's got to be a pathway, and you brought it to our attention. So, yes, thank you. Appreciate it. And I will say thank you for the exceptional service that you do provide, and I'm hopeful that we can resolve this soon.
Yes.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on past this item, and there's several pages. But now we're going to get to business from the floor. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on issues that are within our jurisdiction that are not items for discussion tonight. Each of you will have 3 minutes, and I also know that there'll be likely those from the public, and so please come forward.
My name is Sarah Dunn, representing Keep Vacaville Safe. I'm here with an unsettling update. As mentioned earlier, the California Energy Commission has issued a preliminary recommendation to approve the Corby Best project in unincorporated Vacaville. The Energy Commission's preliminary findings, no significant impact except for it's an eyesore. We strongly disagree. I'm here today to encourage you, as well as the general public, to use every tool at your disposal to prevent this project from moving forward. The project's battery containers are in the county, but the gen tie lines are in the city. So this is a city problem. If built, it will absolutely affect our Vacaville residents, businesses, and our economic development and growth we are trying hard to achieve in our city. Vacaville is supposed to be known for its biotechnology jobs, not lithium-ion battery farms. Approval of this project sets a dangerous precedent for BEST to be built anywhere in Vacaville and to be permitted by the state, threatening our public safety, local economy, and farmland. We're all familiar with the 2025 Moss Landing fire and the environmental damage and stigma it has left that community. Recently, NextEra, the developer behind Corby, is currently facing a lawsuit over well water contamination caused by a fire at their East Hampton, New York BEST facility, which ultimately led to the shutdown of multiple municipal wells. They were contaminated with forever chemicals that didn't appear until 3 years after the fire. The proposed Corby location sits dangerously close to residential wells and SID canals. The closest city well is only 1 mile away. A similar event here would be catastrophic for our city water supply, as well as the land and the people who live nearby. You already did the right thing by enacting a moratorium and passing a strong ordinance to ensure these types of projects are only built in the safest locations with the safest technology. And for that, we're deeply grateful. Now I'm asking you to defend those standards and help protect Vacaville. Please save our residents from harm, preserve our water and our agriculture by taking all necessary steps to stop this project at this location. People can submit comments online and consider attending the public hearing, which is going to be September 1st from 4 to 9 p.m. at the Ulatis Community Center. Vacaville's future is worth fighting for. Thank you for your time and your leadership. If anyone's interested in finding more information, they can visit our website at keepvacavillesafe.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, Derek Johnson. I hope that with the battery situation that we're facing in the county, that the city is taking every step possible to work with the county, as well as other cities and other counties across California, to try to come to some sort of partnership or agreement that sort of an attack on one is an attack on all. Because if we don't stand together collectively, Sacramento is going to continue ramming these kinds of things down our throats. And if we don't stand up, we're going to find ourselves someday having a podium sitting out in front of City Hall or out in a field where a future mayor may be giving a speech, or a member of a board of supervisors giving a speech after a disaster has happened, saying how he or she is going to get to the bottom of one of these problems. The problem is if you look at the CEC report right now, a number of the accidents in California and across the country say root cause unknown. And that should be terrifying, because some of these accidents have happened years ago. And I know we may look at it and people on the TV may say, well, this is a county problem. This isn't a city problem. But as Sarah mentioned, those gen tie lines have to come across city land, 21 acres of city land. And in fact, the staff assessment report says that essentially they don't have to even honor the one-to-one land exchange or ratio within our city limits, because it's just not that big a deal. And they use that as a reason to basically say that the land use and agricultural appropriation for this project is less than significant as long as there's mitigation. So we have skin in this game, we have influence, and we need to use that influence, and we need to band together with other cities and counties and citizens groups to really fight this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, as you are aware, the draft EIR has come out and indicates that the only issue with the Corby project is that it may be an eyesore. With all the research, we know that this is not the case. I'm asking that you strongly oppose the project in its current location. Please ask questions on its official comments page that force them to respond. Also, if the state approves this project, please encourage the county to sue them and potentially join them in the suit. I also want to point out that I am one of those in the county 4th district that basically has no representation at this time, and some of you are running for that position. I am opposed to the travel center that is being proposed for the Cherry Glen area. I want to remind you that Solano is supposed to be supporting the preservation of ag land. Therefore, so should the city of Vacaville. This location takes away from ag land and impacts the surrounding ag land and residents nearby. With the closing down of about 12 generational cattle and dairy farms in the area of Point Reyes, it becomes even more important to preserve this ag land, which has been used for cattle. There are other locations where this project could go. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, fellow citizens. Anyone that's ever driven into a Pilot or other large truck stop gas station is always amazed by the activity, the hub of activity that is constantly occurring. However, there is an underlying or even more serious issues that go on with gas stations, and that is crime. All you have to do is check the FBI stats on crime and gas stations, especially large gas station locations. Here's one part of a report right off of the internet dealing with the FBI's data. According to the FBI crime data, gas stations and convenience stores account for 5% of all violent crimes serving as frequent targets of robbery and property crimes. Areas with high concentration of large gas stations or high volume fueling centers often report elevated local crime counts. So that comes from the FBI stats, but obviously every part of the neighborhood is going to be adversely affected by it. All the noise and concentration camp lights, 18-wheelers idling all night long, the travelers possibly trying to sleep over as they travel through the state. And with the elevated crime rate comes other crimes, including prostitution, theft, and drug dealing. Lenore Homes and their subsidiaries is completing a family residence community called Lagoon Valley. Everyone's aware of it. 1,015 homes are being built right across the freeway from this proposed huge gas station. Hundreds and hundreds of trucks will be stopping there daily, along with regular commuters. The increase in traffic in that area will be astronomical. The smell, the noise, the true danger of auto accidents with pedestrians, with bikes, and vehicles will increase dramatically. Not to mention that many fires have happened in that stretch of Highway 80, and the increased peril that neighborhood will have as a result of it all is in all this additional activity. Whomever is proposing this certainly is trying to outmaneuver all the citizens of Vacaville, Fairfield, and Solano County in their control of their future community-based vision. Shame on them. Shame on the manipulators. There's many miles between Vacaville and Sacramento that would be much better appropriate for an 18-wheeler city. Are you with us? Put it on the ballot if you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I think what you've heard so far tonight is a community that wants to prioritize and preserve our ag land, which is consistent with the goals and values city planning has, the county of Solano has, and LAFCO has. We want a safe community and preserve our ag land. Whether it's battery storage facilities, or truck centers. We resoundingly say that is not what we want. At the last meeting, I was upset and I talked about the lack of notice. When that was brought to your attention, you doubled down and said, nope, everybody got notice. Everybody within 600 feet and Lower Lagoon Valley received notice. I can tell you I've had a month of time to do my research, and no, we didn't. Not one home on Cherry Glen, not one home that borders that proposed site received notice. The county did not receive notice until we as constituents started asking questions. So to sit there and say it happened and it didn't is disappointing. It would be very different if you said, oh, I might have missed it, we'll look into it. Let's follow up where we could do better, but that's not what was said. What was said was, notice went out and you received it. Earlier tonight, you talked about circumventing local control when it came to the proposed battery sites. Talked about being down planners. And don't worry, it's the very beginning of the process. Well, at what point should the community be worried? At what point in this early planning, this initial planning for the truck stop, should we be involved? It's either a project or it's not. It's been assigned a project number, which I'll get to in a second. You guys talked about wanting to work with the county on a previous project, yet no notice was given to them until James Bezick reached out. I called the city because I thought, you know what, I'll do my homework. Let me figure out where I went wrong in receiving notice. I'm gonna come up here and throw stones. I should be educated. I looked at the website, the city planning website, and their list of projects, some selected projects, hasn't been updated since last year, despite it saying it's updated each quarter. Additionally, when I called and spoke to the planning department, which was quite lovely, thank you, very nice, and I brought up my concern, she walked me through it and came to the same conclusion. Oh, it's not there. Oh, it hasn't been updated. I said, how would I find out this information so I can stay informed? She says, well, if you have the project number, you can type it in and look it up. How would I have a project number if I don't know there's a project? Help us be informed, be transparent, and share the information.
Thank you. Next. So just so you all know, you're taking away his time every time you do this. We're listening, we're taking notes, and there's a few comments that we'll make because we do want to hear it. And so I would just ask that the applause isn't necessary because it's taking up his time. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Carley and members of the council. My name is Sahaj Takar, and I'm a 14-year-old rising ninth grader living in Fairfield. I'm a member of the Fairfield Youth Commission and the founder of the National Association of Youth Commissions. This nonprofit organization works to establish youth commissions in cities where they are already present, push for legislation beneficial to youth, increase youth access to government, and provide a space for youth around the nation to collaborate. I'm speaking to you this evening on a proposal that I've seen work firsthand and is one of the best things that a city can do for its youth. I'm asking you to create a youth commission in Vacaville. For some context, a youth commission is a group of young people, typically aged 14 to 25, who work to advise the city council and mayor on topics relating to the youth. This can range from a small issue that affects a few young people to citywide youth issues. Youth commissions are created with the purpose of bridging the gap between the youth of a city and a city's government. Simply put, youth know youth issues best and they know how to tackle them. As of right now, Vacaville does have some programs that support youth in the city, including, as Councilmember Chapman mentioned, Summer at City Hall. But what Vacaville needs is a standalone body that can tackle youth issues. A youth commission would be different from just another program, in that this isn't the city giving to the youth, it's also the youth giving to the city. The city just needs to give them the chance. For example, and also, cities with youth commissions often see real change and new laws. For example, the Fairfield Youth Commission is actively working with the city to implement a tobacco retail license, which ties into the issue of smoking in our schools. These are the types of opportunities that Vacaville's youth need. and this wouldn't even be difficult to implement. All that's needed is a resolution that would establish the commission. There would be minimal cost to the city since there would be no need to hire any new individuals. The only adults involved would be an adult advisor and optionally one city council member as a liaison. There would also be very little administrative costs since the only real cost would be holding a monthly or bi-monthly meeting. Furthermore, through the National Association of Youth Commissions, I would be happy to offer the city with free research on how things like exact costs, appointments, and scope of work would play out. I'm requesting the City Council to direct staff to report back on potential routes the city could take in starting a commission. I would also be happy to serve as a resource for the city during this time. If any member of the council is interested, please contact me at 707-344-9999. I'd be happy to meet with members of the council and help out in the process. Thank you.
What was that number again?
707-344-9999.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello. I'm here regarding the proposed 24-hour pilot travel center at 566 Cherry Glen Road and the increasingly urgent fire safety questions surrounding this location. As of the date of this letter, more than 2,100 people have signed the petition regarding the proposed pilot travel center, demonstrating that the proposal has generated significant public interest and concern within our community. On Thursday, July 23rd, the Cherry Glen fire burned near Pena Adobe and the Butcher Road in Lagoon Valley area. Initial reports described rapidly spreading wind-driven flames. Aircrafts were called to assist and parks were closed and 2 eastbound Interstate 80 lanes were blocked before firefighters stopped the fire's forward progress. The incident is not isolated. The June 7, 2026 line fire was the 3rd documented vegetation fire in the Cherry Glen Interstate 80 corridor in just over 1 year. On May 26, 2025, the Cherry fire began at Cherry Glen Extension Road on the north side of I-80, and it burned uphill towards Pleasant Valley Road. That threatened structures nearby and ultimately burned 52 acres. A second Cherry fire started on June 30th, 2025 at the westbound I-80 off-ramp at Cherry Glen Road. I can continue with fires, but I want to get through this. These fires provided proof that current local evidence and conditions surrounding the project, not a hypothetical concern from another region. The area contains dry grass, hills, open space, agricultural land, and interstate corridor where the vegetation fire can quickly spread and interfere with the traffic and emergency access. Had a 24-hour fuel truck facility already been operating in that corridor, firefighters could have faced gasoline and diesel storage, numerous passenger vehicles and commercial trucks, idling vehicles and hot engines, fuel delivery truck operations, truck maintenance activities, possible hazardous cargo passing through or parked on site, employees, customers, and drivers requiring evacuation, congestion affecting emergency access and public evacuation, the added complexity of protecting nearby residential areas, including the homes along Cherry Glen Road, as well as approximately 140 existing homes in the Lagoon Valley area, with an additional 960 homes with multiple other structures anticipated to be there within the next 2 years, and that's the Lagoon Valley project. The fact that firefighters successfully controlled these recent fires does not establish that adding major fuel-intensive use, such as large-scale fuel storage and other high-emission industrial activity, is safe. It demonstrates that the ignition and rapid fire spread already occur in this corridor and that emergency resources are already required to protect it. I previously emailed each member of the City Council asking for their position on the proposed pilot travel center. I have not received a response. I understand that the application is still under review and that all required studies have not been received, and that project is not presently before the council for a final decision.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Can I have your 3 minutes?
No, we're not. We
don't do that?
We don't exchange minutes.
Okay.
So thank you, and I do believe that you sent your email, which has been.
I did. Thank you very much for acknowledging that I sent this in an email and then like 35 other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and fellow council members. I've got concerns also about the pilot center. It's using farmland for development that's not earmarked for this project. It's going to do away with alfalfa fields, working orchards, and active food producing. and that sustains our community. This travel center is going to be operational 24/7 for fueling trucks and maintenance of trucks. As a result of this, there will be noise pollution, light pollution, diesel emissions, and runoff into nearby creeks and wetlands. So please do not let dollar signs get in your eyes, but please consider the health of the environment and the public.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Mia Roberts, and I'm a Vacaville resident, environmental scientist, and experienced oil spill responder. And I met and spoke with many of you at our recent local farm-to-table dinner on July 10th. I'm here to encourage the City Council members to value small agriculture and the environment when considering any votes that enable the construction of the proposed pilot truck stop and travel center at the gateway to our city. I would like to start my comment with why my partner and I decided to settle in Vacaville. Vacaville's central location and relative affordability were huge factors, but so were the beautiful hills and countryside surrounding the city, and direct access to locally grown food produced by the increasingly rare small farmer. Now, I have lived in places where the gradual degradation of our agricultural lands and natural spaces has occurred as a result of cities prioritizing the instant gratification of growth and development in the name of progress. When I return to my hometown of Riverside, I'm pained by the absolute sprawl that has taken over my original Southern California home. The delicious smelling orange groves that characterized my childhood have been turned into industrial developments and housing tracts, named after the very orange groves they replaced. As an oil spill responder, I know exactly what gas stations and truck stops bring. Significantly more traffic, significantly more emissions, a much higher probability of tanker truck turnovers and oil spills to our precious and increasingly rare waterways and groundwater aquifers. As a recent resident of this city, outdoor enthusiast, and frequent patron of our local farms, I implore you, please do not allow Vacaville to fall into the same trap of instant gratification that so many other communities have fallen into. Please do not vote in favor of needlessly exposing Vacaville residents to more pollution. Please vote in a way that supports our local farmers, our local agriculture, and green spaces by opposing the construction of the pilot truck stop, whatever that looks like. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Miguel Medina. I've been here in Vacaville most of my life. So, when I learned about the proposed truck stop, I was thinking about the aesthetics of what it would do to the area. And I remember when, I think I was 11 years old the first time I came to Vacaville, and when we were approaching Cherry Glen Road, it looked so beautiful, and it still does to this day. I'm just proud when I'm making that little bend there, and you see the mountains and all the open space, the lagoon. It's beautiful, and I don't want to see that disappear. All right, so we've heard from others. Claude probably took most of my thunder, but I just want to touch on some other things that the why we shouldn't have this here in Vacaville, right? It's the why. Not that we're scared of it, but there are whys, right? So there was just recently, we've spent a lot of money, the state, in improving traffic to mitigate congestion through Highway 80 through Vacaville, right? Lots of work went into it, lots of investment, and we know that, all right, and I'm wondering, why would we affect that? Why would we try to take away some of that or add more congestion after that big investment? Why? I don't know. It just doesn't make sense, right? Because there will be congestion, and it will affect, and we're taking a step backwards. I don't want to see us go in that direction, right? So I hope that things with traffic are considered. The other one, too, is public safety and enforcement demands.
those will increase, right? We know that there's going to be crime. I hope not, but there's a high likelihood. It's been documented that there will be crime. There's crime associated with these truck stops. But there's going to be increased demand for police, and I know we've had to make some very difficult decisions with services that the police provide to the city of Vacaville. So let's not add to the workload that they have now. So I just wanted to touch on those two other things that haven't been covered yet, but I hope that, again, we consider just how beautiful the area is and that we embrace it and celebrate it, and let's do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's time for your 3-minute power nap. Okay, first of all, travel center. I hear the radio a lot. There's lots of traffic accidents on Interstate 80 right there near Cherry Glen. A big travel center is going to only make that situation worse. I know you really want the tax money, but better think about this. Okay, the best plant. Yes, we know you guys are all on board. I sure hope that you can find us a friend in Sacramento that'll support Vacaville, because we know Lori Wilson has stabbed us in the back on this matter. Okay, California Forever. This is the county staff report that I have talked about many times. None of the facts here have changed. California Forever, for those of you who are proponents of it, California Forever will cost taxpayers billions of dollars. This hasn't changed. California Forever doesn't want to talk about this. Last week, there was much gnashing of the teeth over, oh my God, we lost the shipyard deal. I told you, more than a year, I've been telling you, shipbuilding at Collinsville was an absolutely pie-in-the-sky BS story. I did that with facts. Later on, when Saronic was mentioned specifically, I told you with facts that A, Saronic only builds little boats, B, they build them in Texas, mostly at Austin. Later on, a year later, when, oh, by the way, now they own a shipyard in Franklin, Louisiana, I told you this. They've already intend to build up to 50 of their larger craft a year in Franklin, Louisiana. So if they even build anything at Brownsville, it will take them a huge contract before they're ever going to expand there. I told you this. Did you listen to me? No. Why? Because you're a shill for California Forever. That's it. Those of you that sit there, beat your chest, talk about your patriotism, and, oh my God, we're going to build ships at Collinsville. Do you think we're that stupid? Really? Okay. With apologies to music lovers. I told you so. I told you so. Don't forget, I told you so.
I'm not going to sing. So my name's Alicia Minion, and Mayor Carly, I want to thank you for talking about what happened at the last mayor's meeting and your idea, or the mayor's idea, to write to the county to strike a master tax sharing agreement. I'm wholly against the county striking a master tax sharing agreement. And I think everyone in this room, I think there's at least a few people that are against California Forever, against the annexation in Sassoon, and against the annexation that will result in a travel center and gas station. There's a way to hold up that annexation. And the way is to go to the county and tell them, do not strike a master tax sharing agreement, because if that doesn't happen, the annexation doesn't happen. So while it seems benign and maybe a good idea for the mayor to say, oh, let's ask the county to enter in the master tax sharing agreement, really the consequence, which all the public should really understand, is this streamlines development. Because now the annexation, there's no holdup. There's a master tax sharing agreement. Often counties hurt themselves financially because in these master tax sharing agreements, they don't consider individual projects. Each individual project should be evaluated separately so the county can measure and model what is the financial loss that they're going to incur by their land being annexed to the city to facilitate a project. So I'm wholly against it, and I'm sorry that annexations will be delayed as a result, but that's a good thing. These are big projects, big impacts, and we should not be engaging in any practice to streamline development. So the public is now aware. Make sure the county does not strike a master tax sharing agreement. And what's interesting too is these tax sharing agreements, when the county comes to the table and negotiates with the city, some of these counties have no idea that depending on what percentage they've negotiated, it could actually impact the Melrose tax, which is also a community facility district. So say it's housing development. Depending on what the county is willing to take and the fee sharing, it could be the Melrose is increased, meaning the taxpayer bears more of the burden, or it could be decreased, meaning the county is effectively subsidizing that development. Yeah, so the devil is in the details. And so I always run out of time, but thank you.
I always appreciate your comments, but I appreciate the time for everyone else. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Charlene Schmid, and I don't count. So I'm going to just say that right first up. I live in Solano County. I have an address in Vacaville. I can't vote for any of you fine people up here. I have no say in anything. But what I do want to say is that those farmers in Pleasance Valley Ag Association have invited me, even though I live on Meridian Road, to be part of their functions and to benefit from the community of farming and small ag that we have going on in this area. And it, of course, was my connection with them when I learned about the pilot situation. And I thought, oh, no, we don't need more trucks. We have so many trucks. Go along 80. Look off the side of the road. There's like trucks parked everywhere. It's ridiculous. I don't understand this. But what I did do is go onto the website, and from there, and I'll save this part. I didn't write anything down for next, but I was horrified to find out about the Northeast development, because this is a half a mile from where my ranch lies on Meridian Road, which is going to impact everything with people cutting out and go. It already is impacted on Meridian Road. When there's traffic on 80, people fly up and down. Thanks for the county probably for widening it a little bit, but having this, I'll save that for later. I learned about this on the website. So if you had planning meetings with the community, we're not invited because I don't live in Vacaville. I live a half a mile beyond this development plan, and I just learned about it on the website because I cared about the pilot situation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
You still have time. I just was.
Well, how can I be included? I don't count. I don't count in Dixon, where my kid has to go to school and the fire department responds, and I don't count in Vacaville, even though I pay you guys so much in sales tax from my business. But my business is in jeopardy. Thankfully, I have the Pleasance Valley Ag Association that have taken me under their wing. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name's Sherry Mendes, and I own Bucktown Harvest Farm, a small farm in the Pleasance Valley area. I wasn't planning to speak tonight, but there's some questions that Amber didn't get a chance to finish that we would like on the record. And these are the questions regarding the pilot travel center on Cherry Glen. The first one is a project, these are, she would request that you pay attention to these questions and that these answers, that there are answers given to these questions. Number one, a project-specific wildfire and vegetation fire risk assessment based on the actual Cherry Glen and Lagoon Valley fire history. Number 2, identification and mapping of recent fires within and around the project area, including the June 7th Lion Fire and July 23rd Cherry Fire. Number 3, analysis of gasoline, diesel, parked trucks, hazardous cargo, and maintenance operations during an approaching vegetation fire. Number 4, an honest fire department capacity analysis addressing staffing, response times, water supply, foam, and other specialized resource, simultaneous incidents, and mutual aid dependence. Number 5, a traffic and evacuation analysis considering closure or obstruction of I-80 lanes and local access roads during a fire. Number 6, an evaluation of whether vehicles attempting to enter or leave a 24-hour travel center could interfere with emergency apparatus. Number 7, a cumulative risk analysis that accounts for nearby homes, including those along Cherry Glen Road, Lagoon Valley Residence, Peñadobe Park, open space, ag land, and other proposed development. Number 8, a full disclosure of city and county communications concerning the project and a clear timeline of agency knowledge and involvement. Number 9, a public community meeting after all required reports are available with enough time for residents and independent experts to review them before any recommendation or hearing. And number 10, a clear response from each council member regarding the standards and evidence they would require before supporting annexation or approval. That's from Amber. My 2 cents is I've been on the the Pleasants Valley Ag Association board for 12 years, and my biggest concern right now is we do not have representation from District 4. I don't think this should be moving forward without representation. It's totally inappropriate to not have anybody representing District 4. It doesn't make any sense for the city and county to be moving forward this project without proper representation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mayor Carly and council members. My name is Robert Boardman, and I reside and own the property at 5699 Cherry Glen Road. So as you can imagine, that's right across the street from where this proposed truck stop is going to be built. I live literally right across the street, and I was never notified that this was going to happen. I found out about this through social media, and it's very disturbing. I moved to Vacaville in 2017. I was born and raised in Southern California. My dad was a farmer. I've always had the dream of having a piece of property to have animals, and I do. I have a small farm on Cherry Glen. To have this truck center built right across the street from my house would be detrimental to the whole neighborhood and to my farm and to my animals because of all the pollution, all the traffic and everything. I've seen the plans online. They're planning on widening the street. How much of that street is going to encroach into my front yard? I'm opposed to this, and I hope that you will vote against it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Mayor. Hi, everyone. I just have to touch on the human and animal aspect of the pilot center going in. I've owned horses for over 35 years at Rancho Hotel Horse Center, which is in the heart of Lagoon Valley. We have had to evacuate at times because of fire. It is a daunting task to evacuate 45 horses out of that horse center. We've done it all on our own. We've had to do it. We have been asked to do it. But these horses are living, breathing hearts of our souls. I mean, I know you all have pets, and how you feel if your dog has a little owie or you lose a pet, it's horrible. These animals, these cows, these rabbits, these coyotes, these amazing, amazing, beautiful animals that reside in this beautiful space. Please help them stay where they are, let them live, let them thrive. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have any members online wishing to comment? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close business from the floor, but before we move on, I want to ask, even though this we can't do any business tonight, but I think it's important maybe just for some clarification, is there anything to our city manager as far as messaging where people can go? Because projects happen all the time where people look at land use and say, I'd like to do something, and then they make applications. So can you just speak to that?
I would like to invite our Community and Economic Development Director, Erin Morris. Her team is leading the effort. She can provide more details.
Yeah, great, thank you. And I appreciate that everyone who showed up tonight to share your thoughts and your concerns, because a good process is important, and the last thing we want is there to be a reason to feel defensive. What we need to do is get to the issue and then move on. If there's things that we can learn, if we don't, sometimes it's the same question we have is, did we message properly? And sometimes maybe in the attempt to try and explain it, maybe that sounds defensive, but it's also trying to figure out a better way of doing things. Oh, there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is a new development application that was filed a couple months ago. So I think what I would want to emphasize to the council and to the public is that the city is at the very beginning of evaluating this proposal. During the first 30-ish days, that's when we're doing all of our technical review involving the county and other stakeholders, other public agencies, Caltrans, and that culminated in a very detailed comment letter back to the applicant. The application is incomplete, and they have a lot of technical studies to prepare. It's quite an inventory as part of responding to city's comments and as part of possibly moving the project forward. The other thing I want to clarify is that we typically will hold for a project of this level of interest probably 2 public meetings, but the first community meeting, we try to hold it early in the process because it's a chance for people to air these kinds of things outside of a council meeting and also have some dialogue and have the applicant hearing what the public's concerns are. We are intending to schedule that meeting, but we are waiting to get some more staff on board to assist with that effort, but that is something that's coming. I think the last thing I'll share, unless there are any specific questions, is once we did the first notice and we saw the petition of 2,000 people, it is very clear there is a lot of interest in this project. So my team is working on building a project-focused webpage, which will be a resource to the public. It'll have a link to the planning file where all those files are available online, and also have some information about next steps. And we were hoping that will be a good resource given the level of interest in the project. Just emphasizing again that we're at the very beginning of the development review process, and there are definitely a lot of issues to address.
And yeah, I think for the audience and for anyone who will watch in the future, I know that I've received, and I acknowledge that email. It's like a list of 12 questions. I could pass on everything that I have to do for the next week trying to answer it, and then there's 4 more like it. That's the importance of a project process. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't weigh heavy on me or anyone else on the council, but we do owe a process to be proper in making sure everyone's involved. So I want to make sure that the audience doesn't feel disparaged at all if it took to come here tonight to message how you feel. I applaud you, I really do, and I'm not going to speak for the rest because this isn't business, but we want to make sure that the process is followed because that's the reason why there's land use and zoning. I know there's all kinds of conversations potentially about annexation. Those are all processes. And what I sense is there's a lot of feeling on the front end that it lacks a lot of details to form the kind of to make final decisions now. It's not even a project where it has been reviewed. It's incomplete right now. So there's nothing other than we will follow good process. I do appreciate that because because this is so important to the community, to have an actual web page where it will have its own landing page so that people want information and they'll be able to provide input. That's because this is a big deal. No different than at a council meeting, business from the floor or any item somebody can submit. So it could be it could require 30 pages, but you only have 3 minutes here. It becomes part of the record. Just know that. For any future process, a public meeting, planning commission, whatever it takes. So the council hears you and the city staff does, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So thank you. Councilmember Chapman?
Thank you.
I just want to be careful that we don't go too far into questioning because this is not business.
No, it's a comment. Yes, a comment in regards to not hearing back from any of the council members stating that they had reached out to each. That is not my norm. I'm speaking for myself. If you've ever reached out to me on any other issue, you always received a response from me. My devices went down. And when your notices first came in, I can't speak for the other council members, but we hadn't been notified. We didn't know the project was coming in. And I had to call the city manager to get that information. So I want to let you know, you knew before we knew. And then the other thing, and that's only because of the process that you've heard. So I just want to apologize to you because ordinarily you would have received a response back from me stating, I'm acknowledging receipt of your message. And so I just want to put that out there. I do not ignore you. If you take the time to write, I will respond. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And just quickly before we move on, I know it's not business, but I also need to help understand there's just for clarification, because I don't want words to be minced. The city and the mayors, so all the mayors of the county, directed to the county to engage in an understanding of how we move forward. And so I want to caution that this sometimes becomes the problem. If we want to weaponize something by saying, well, if you don't have a master tax sharing agreement, well, then you can't do anything. I don't want to get into legal technical terms, but if you were to engage every city and every city manager and every city mayor and the county, you said something that nobody else amongst the mayors want to suggest. But what we don't want to see is a battle between the city and the county, because all major commercial development gets negotiated. But when you're talking about a development that's going to add 50 homes that's already gone through a process, and you have to de-annex for water, and then it takes 9 months. And so a developer that is doing a project that's completely approved in the city limits of Vacaville, and they can't because the county has ripped up the tax sharing agreement. We can speculate as to why that happened, but it's been 2 years and there was no communication between the cities and the county to get there. So there's a lot of clarification for that, but all of that is on the record. I just want to make sure that if you're interested in that, we can talk more later about that issue. But it does interfere with the daily operations of how you're supposed to develop and how you're supposed to build. Two different things, residential and commercial. Commercial generally always has a separate tax sharing negotiation. With that, I want to go ahead and move on to the public hearings. So to our city clerk, item 11A.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. The item for you tonight is a request to amend Title 14 of the code to modify some of the requirements for general plan amendments and text amendments. So just a brief overview, the proposals remove a couple of things. One is that initial initiation hearing and application filing windows, and also to modify who can request general plan amendments. It could be a property owner, authorized agent, or it could be any director in the city. There's been some questions about what the proposal does and what it doesn't do. What it does is streamline the internal application review process, removes an administrative procedural step that has become redundant, and improves efficiency and reduces unnecessary processing time, and aligns city procedures with current planning practices, and it clarifies administrative responsibilities. What it does not do is it doesn't change who approves general plan amendments. It doesn't eliminate city council public hearings. It doesn't reduce public notices or opportunities for public comment. It doesn't reduce environmental review, and it doesn't change general plan policies, land use designations, or anything like that. Sort of back to you might find some of this information is redundant as well. We just want to make sure we get take the point seriously in terms of folks who are concerned about this, again, about what it does and what it doesn't do. The public review process remains unchanged. Environmental review process remains unchanged. There was a question that came with this to make things easier for developers. I think it makes it easier for anybody who wants to propose general plan amendments. And it's simply that process. It's not the entirety of it. It's a portion of it that's being modified. So again, anybody that wants to submit a general plan amendment, it does make things more efficient. But equally so for staff, it's more efficient in that we can sort of get to the project, get to the heart of the project and our evaluation of it quicker than we can right now. Like I mentioned, doesn't change the city's general plan. The city council's authority remains the same. Right now, as it is, and you have experience with this, an application comes in, we have an initiation hearing, you tell us what you think, they go back, and really the process then starts really over again at that point. What we're proposing is to take out that mirror hearing process and let staff get to evaluating the application, get to public notices, neighborhood meetings, and things like that. And again, there is no change to City Council's authority, public hearings, or final approval authority. This graphic sort of tells the story as well, that initiation hearing, which takes staff a long time to prepare a project for, that comes to council right now. And what we're proposing is that we avoid that process so that we can start evaluating the entirety of the project. What that does, again, in terms of just making the process more efficient, it does allow staff to be more efficient, like I said, with the public, with neighborhood meetings, with community meetings. And typically when we have a project, we've had folks come to city council, get an initiation hearing approval. For some folks, that means that the project is approved, or it's not. That's just simply the beginning process. So I think this would hopefully erase some of that uncertainty that folks have about whether the project's been approved or not. So what we're proposing is, again, in line with other planning practices from other jurisdictions, and it doesn't change who has the authority to look at it, doesn't change anything related to CEQA, our review process. It's simply taking out what we consider to be a redundant process in the beginning of it. So again, just modernize an outdated administrative procedure, that's true. Improves efficiency without reducing oversight, that's also true. Transparency is still there, the public noticing, public comment period, the public's opportunity to communicate with staff, that's all going to remain the same. Same thing with CEQA. So it doesn't really change anything about the process. Any general plan amendment still has to go through that application submittal, staff evaluation, planning commission, and city council. This simply removes, again, a step that doesn't really help the project anyway, because we still have to evaluate it for findings, for general plan amendment findings, for zoning text amendment findings. So none of that changes. This is simply that step of coming to the council and then starting the process all over again. So right now, the next steps, we've introduced this tonight, and we're hoping that we'll have the second reading at the next meeting. That's our recommendation, just adopting a resolution regarding CEQA and introducing the ordinance for the proposed changes. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know that sometimes this can create confusion, but like we've just been listening, there seems to be at times this sense of there's a whole process to then say, take a look at it and then go through a whole other process, and that's staff time. If you're simplifying this, as it seems like it is, it's you're not eliminating any of the oversight. You're simply getting it to decisions actually faster. I mean, that's the way I see it. Any comments or any other benefits? And the other question is in the world of process, where are we compared to other cities? And I don't want to say, let's just do what other cities are doing. But a lot of times we learn because sometimes we lead the way as a city, and other times other places have effectively made change. Sometimes people want certainty, and if you're going through a process that's a year long, and we can get to the root of a decision much faster, why wouldn't you?
I'll respond to that, and then Payman touched on this also in the presentation. One of the weaknesses of the current merit hearing process, which is really unique to Vacaville, most cities don't do it this way, is that the council is asked to make a decision about whether or not to allow a general plan amendment to come in with incomplete information, without like a full staff analysis, without a full outreach process, and really kind of in a little vacuum, if you will. And so what has happened in my time in Vacaville, and I've experienced other jurisdictions where we've never had this kind of thing, is that the council's put in a position of making a decision. We as your staff tell you, you're not approving the project, you're basically deciding if it can go through a pretty long and involved process. The public that's there, if you support it, they think you've approved it. Frankly, sometimes the developers try to do a little revisionist history and say, yeah, well, the council approved this. And we're like, well, that was actually just a merit hearing. We're actually in the review. No, they were very supportive. So in my professional opinion, the existing process really muddles things for the public, for the council, and ultimately adds months to what is never going to be a fast process. General plan amendments are always going to be a longer process. It's a big deal to change the city's constitution for development. But that merit hearing piece is pretty unique to Vacaville, and I just don't think it adds anything good.
All right, appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and open up to the public for any comments. Seeing none, do we have anybody online wishing to speak? All right. Well, I thank you. I think that part of the challenge that we have in government is there's a lot of complaints that we're being very inefficient. Certainly, this adds staff time and hours when we don't have them. I have, and I'm sure others on the council have been hearing from the public saying, hey, don't give up your responsibility in this, and none of this does. I think that, and I appreciate staff's approach to actually being more open to having an open process throughout the year and actually increasing applications, but there's always a time when we need to be more efficient in the way we do business. So, Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I think this goes along with a lot of the frustration that we receive in our emails when people want us to take a hardline stance on a project that hasn't, the totality of that project hasn't come before us, right? So if it's, I feel like this process, this merit hearing, is almost like an extension of that, like jeopardizing our ability to really be fair and impartial and evaluate a project in its entirety before it comes before us to make a decision on. So I think for that reason, I'm supportive of the merit hearing kind of going away, because I think it's really hard to judge the merits of something you don't have the total picture of. And I think the public deserves to know that. We're still held accountable for the decisions that we make, but we should be making them within the entirety of what they're bringing forward. And I also don't want it to undermine staff's ability to really negotiate with developers to make sure that we're getting a good project, right? And that they're not counting to 4 or figuring out, okay, we can get this project through and we don't have to do those nice things that everybody wants, build that park or add this amenity or whatever. So for that reason, I'm supportive.
Yeah. Well, I would be looking for a motion.
I motion to approve.
Second. We have a motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and move on, Madam City Clerk, to
We have to get. Thank you, Mayor Carly and Council. I'm happy to be here with the consultant team that's helped the city prepare the Northeast Growth Area Planning Study. As most of you are aware, given your tenure on council, this study has a lot of background. The city's essentially been working on finding the money, the means, and the interest to do a planning study of this area since approximately 2022, when the first battery energy storage was proposed in the Northeast Growth Area. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to our consultants from Place Placeworks. They will introduce themselves, and then at the end, after they talk about our fiscal impact analysis work, I will make some closing comments, and then we're happy to take your questions and comments.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Ellie Fiore. I'm a principal with Placeworks, and I'm joined tonight by my colleague Cliff Lau. We're happy to present the results of the planning study we've been undertaking for the last several months. In addition to Placeworks, we were supported by 3 sub-consultants you can see here on the right who did the technical studies that we'll be referring to as well. As Aaron alluded to, this is an area that has been eyed for growth and planning for several years. In the 2015 general plan, there was policy direction given to study this area primarily for employment-focused development. Right now, this land is split between lands that are in the city and in the county, but the entire area is within the city's urban growth boundary and sphere of influence. A little bit more specifically, the general plan calls for prioritizing job-generating uses with a focus on high-quality offices, high-paying jobs, more advanced types of industrial uses, ensuring that the employment-generating uses are considered before residential, ensuring development is evaluated for environmental impacts, and that would happen, an EIR, an environmental impact report, would be prepared as part of the specific plan, which would also address things like infrastructure, public safety, and provide the potential developers with the guidance that they would need to come forward with projects. So our mission was to look at some potential land use scenarios to kind of highlight some of the potential impacts, specifically what the impacts would be under a few different land use configurations, and Cliff will walk us through those in a moment. We also started this project by engaging members of the community, which I'll talk about in a second. And again, we're looking for feedback from you all tonight on these 3 scenarios, which would potentially inform a specific plan, which would be the next step if this project goes forward. Just briefly, this is where we are in our process. We met with the Planning Commission in June, and some of their comments are included in the staff report. After tonight, we will finalize our report, do a little bit more fine-grained analysis as needed if a preferred scenario is identified, and then our work here is done. As far as engagement, we held a public workshop last summer, right when we were starting this effort. There was about 20 community members who attended. There was very strong support, as you can imagine, for maintaining the culture of agricultural and rural land uses, and specifically for keeping agricultural land in ag. There were other comments, however, that did express interest in some industrial development, and there was some consensus that any development should have some green space buffers, and that if there were more residential and commercial uses, there's a lot of interest in a grocery store. The other piece of the engagement were stakeholder interviews. We reached out and had conversations with 10 landowners, real estate experts, and business park owners, and this was to start evaluating the feasibility of some of these land uses in Vacaville, better understand the real estate market, what kind of uses are viable, what the trade-offs might be. There was general support for job-generating uses. Some of the property owners had also been interested in residential. There was some caution that, you need to look at the industrial kind of ecosystem, if you will, and where there's supply and demand, so you're not competing with your neighbors and you're creating a viable product. And there's also a trend of incorporating residential and other uses into industrial parks. So the days of having just you drive in, there's purely industrial uses, there's nothing around you, are gone. We're seeing more and more industrial parks that have amenities for employees, that are connected to trails, bike paths, have residents and commercial uses within those developments as well. Staff has been coordinating with county staff, obviously for obvious reasons. The land is within the city's UGB and SOI, but because they're adjacent, it's important to work with the county and continue to do so. The county has been supportive and has participated in a lot of meetings with city staff, and that will continue to move forward. So this is just a snapshot of the existing land uses. As you can see, it's primarily agricultural. There are some pockets of low-density residential, some manufacturing and light industrial uses, but primarily today agricultural land. So with that, I will turn it over to Cliff, who will walk us through the alternatives that we studied.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and council members. So, as part of this study, excuse me, as my mic is in and out. Let's see if I get it closer. So as part of this study, we looked at 3 potential land use and circulation alternatives as different development scenarios. These alternatives all maintain an industrial focus with a variety in land use makeup between the alternatives. The study was aimed to provide us an understanding for the benefits, needs, and potential costs that would be necessary for the if each alternative was developed. And the study specifically looked at infrastructure needs, so that's water, wastewater, storm drainage needs, the transportation needs and impacts, and potential fiscal impact considerations for the city for each one. This lists the primary land uses we use to constitute each alternative. The first 2 are industrial uses. The business park is intended to represent more technology and high-end industrial uses. An example of those are R&D, advanced manufacturing, biotechnology. Industrial parks represent more traditional industrial activities that include commercial services, warehousing, logistics, and distribution. We also factored in some dedicated commercial, highway in general, as supporting uses for the other uses in the study area. We also began to factor in some residential for 2 of the alternatives to look at a variety of land use mixes. And finally, we also included provisions for open space, parks, and green buffers. The open space and parks are consistent with general plan standards for community parks and neighborhood parks. I just want to take a quick snapshot at what was developed as part of the 2015 general plan update, with the goal at the time of imagining this area for employment generating uses. This land use diagram is in the current general plan, as you can see with the various color gray land uses. Those represent technology, industrial, and business parks. You can see the distribution here in 2015 as part of that 2015 diagram, but also a number of red and purple general and highway commercial areas, and some yellow and brown for residential. But this was the idea that was imagined at the time. We do want to note that this is sort of a placeholder, and that if a future specific plan was to proceed, any land use diagram that is developed there would take precedent and would be the land use plan moving forward. So we'll begin with alternative A, and this is our most employment-heavy option. There are no residential uses being shown here. As I said before, the business parks are intended to represent our higher-end industrial uses. Those are shown in the lighter grays, and the industrial park represent more traditional industrial uses, and those are in the darker grays. As you can see, the lighter grays are given preference to visibility on I-80, and the darker gray industrial uses are set back a bit further. There is we show community park size in the southwest corner of the plan area, that's in the dark green, and then 2 neighborhood size level parks in the north area and the central area. The light greens represent green buffers, and so these are intended to buffer the future development of the study area from adjacent uses, as well as perhaps transform existing green waterways in the area into public greenway assets. This table shows a potential build-out if alternative A were to develop, and this would yield, with the heavy employment focus, would yield potentially up to 12 million square feet of industrial development, and about 1 million square feet of highway commercial development. Alternative B is where we begin to look at mixing in some residential, and in this case, it's a form of medium high density to high density residential. These are per the general plan designations for those densities. And the residential uses in this case are being introduced at the south edge of the study area, as you can see. And there is a green buffer there to help separate it from adjacent community as well. But for the remaining part of the plan area, still following a strong distribution of business park and industrial park with more concentration of business park, and also given business park favorable, more visibility along Interstate 80. The build-out for Alternative B will use slightly less industrial square footage than Alternative A, coming close to around 11 million square feet. But with the introduction of residential, this alternative could potentially get us about 1,400 units based on the densities of those two designations. And finally, we'll walk through Alternative C, and this one mixes in the most residential out of the three, but still maintaining a heavy industrial focus, majority industrial focus, excuse me. And we also begin to introduce a third category of residential density here, which is medium density. And the southwest area is primarily now residential with varying densities. The medium density residential is also being introduced now along the northern edge along Midway Road. And there are several parks located to help serve these potential future households. We have 2 neighborhood parks in the southwest, 1 neighborhood park in the north, and a community-sized park in the east central area along there. So as you can expect, this would yield us the least amount of industrial development at approximately a little over 8 million square feet of industrial, but the most in residential, and potentially around 3,100 units of residential. This slide just shows a comparison visually of the different land use makeup between the 3 alternatives. As you can see, with the most variety in Alternative C, with 3 residential designations, Alternative B having 2 residential designations, and Alternative A primarily industrial focus. Just to recap on the build-out comparison, as you can see, Alternative A having no residential, B having about 1,400 units of residential, Alternative C having about 3,100. And then for non-residential square footage, this also includes the highway commercial that's distributed throughout, decreasing as you go from Alternative A to Alternative C. And just so I want to quickly talk about the circulation layouts between each of the 3 alternatives. Alternative A follows a much more regular grid-like roadway layout. This kind of means roads basically meet at mostly 90-degree angles. This is easiest to implement. All 3 alternatives feature a connection to Orange Drive. Alternative B follows a more curvilinear layout, and it features a connection to Orange Drive, but also supports the general plan alignment for the Orange Drive extension. And Alternative C has a bit of characteristics of both, where it follows a mix of a grid-like approach, but also roads deviating and intersecting each other at different angles, and also features a connection at Orange Drive. So for the transportation evaluation that was conducted by our team, the goal here was to assess the potential impacts to the existing circulation network that would result due to the development under each scenario. Our team member GHD evaluated 18 intersections based on their proximity and expected impact from the envisioned land uses. They first set a baseline of of the no-build scenario with a horizon year 2050. And this no-build scenario assumed that no development would happen, nor any transportation improvements would have been implemented, including the transportation improvements as part of your Transportation Impact Fee Program, or TIF. From this no-build scenario, then GHD evaluated the traffic conditions that would result from the build-out of each alternative and compared it to the no-build scenario. And all scenarios were assessed based on weekday AM and PM peak hour conditions. This is a map showing those 18 intersections that were analyzed. So as you can see, there are several intersections that are within the study area, but many adjacent intersections and interchanges were evaluated. So this table shows that when compared to the no-build scenario, once again assuming that no development nor traffic transportation improvements were implemented through to the year 2050, all alternatives were found to have very few intersections with acceptable level of operations. And so the three right columns where you are seeing a lot of red, these would assume that those intersections don't even have any of the Transportation Impact Fee Program improvements implemented. And so from this, GHD then worked to identify improvements and mitigation measures that will allow each of these intersections to operate at acceptable levels. I just want to briefly talk about the 2025 TIF improvements, or Transportation Impact Fee improvements. So GHD did factor in the recommended 2025 TIF improvements that were identified. And within those improvements, 4 of our intersections had recommendations for improvements under the TIF program. These are outlined in yellow on the diagram on your left, and they're intersections 1, 3, 12, and 13. Intersection 1 is Leisure Road and Orange Drive. Intersection 3 is Leisure Road and the I-80 eastbound off-ramp. Intersections 12 and 13 are the northbound and southbound ramps off of I-505 at Midway Road. The GHD also looked at the road widening recommendations that were part of the TIF improvements, and these included the Midway Road widening between the west of the city limit and O'Day Road / I-80 westbound off-ramp, and Leisure Town Road widening between Elmira Road and Orange Drive. So I want to briefly highlight Leisure Town Road and Orange Drive. So in the transportation analysis that was evaluated, and when looking at the recommended TIF improvement for Leisure Town and Orange Drive, this intersection is already large. It already has substantial geometric capacity. The improvements recommended as part of the 2025 TIF program would require significant expansion of this intersection. And so the study, our evaluation did recognize that implementing this expansion of that intersection would help achieve an acceptable level of service operation of that intersection, but it's kind of not recommended given the scale of improvement that would be required. So we just want to make the point that in this study, at this stage, these are recommended mitigations. They represent a high-level infrastructure assessment, but they are not committing to any kind of fixed design improvements of these intersections. So as part of this recommendation, we just want to note that this specific intersection at least be evaluated more closely in a future planning phase, where that might be the specific plan process, where additional systemic improvements could be considered alongside any geometric improvements. Our second evaluation was infrastructure, and CBG helped us with this evaluation, and they looked at projected water demands, wastewater demands, as well as necessary water quality treatment areas. And so this is sort of an infographic approach to represent the potential water demands under each alternative scenario. For water demands, alternative A has the lowest water demand out of the three alternatives in terms of average day. Excuse me, as I go back a slide to remind myself of these acronyms. Average day demand, maximum day demand, and peak hour demand. While alternative C has the highest demand, and this was based on land use mix. So reminder that alternative A has primarily all industrial uses. Alternative C has the most amount of residential uses. In terms of wastewater demand, alternative A has slightly lowest, is the lowest average dry weather flow at 2.2 megagallons per day, and alternative C has the highest. But if we look at the infographic, they're pretty similar, but just want to note that there is a difference that alternative C would have the highest wastewater flow, also related to land use mix. In terms of stormwater drainage, water quality treatment areas and costs do not vary much between all three alternatives, since there are very similar development areas being envisioned in all. And finally, for connection and alignments, for water layouts and the water system, these would depend on the road, the layout of the proposed roadway network, as utilities would follow those roads. As of now, alternative B has slightly higher road length, so in terms of implementing a water system, it probably would be alternative B would likely be the costliest, and that one is the one with the curvilinear roadway network. For the wastewater alignments, wastewater is largely dependent on trying to use gravity for natural flow, and in the case of the Northeast growth area, topography decreases in elevation from west to east. This points to, I believe it's Lewis Road, on the east side as the best, most optimal solution for laying out wastewater lines, but if we...
Could you say that again?
Sorry?
Just as far as what you were saying, as far as alignment. Just repeat that.
Yes, sorry. For wastewater, wastewater alignment in the sewer line really depends on, optimally we'll lay it out to allow for gravity to generate the most natural flow, and the natural topography of the Northeast growth area, the land decreases in elevation from west to east, which means the lowest point is at Lewis and Burns Road. So optimally, we would have a sewer line on the east side, but in order to connect it back to the city and wastewater treatment, that would mean going through unincorporated Salina County land. In order to make that happen, it would likely require some kind of agreement with the county in terms of easement, and that's what that would look like in order to make that happen. So the alternative option would be to then go back in the other direction, and that would be looking at running the sewer along Leisuretown Road. But as I mentioned, because that would be the high point, that would require like additional design components, and that would look like adding in sewer lift stations, long force mains, and that adds quite some cost to the sewer infrastructure. And so that's about wastewater alignment. And that's it for infrastructure, actually. And so I'll just lastly touch upon our preliminary fiscal impact findings. So EPS helped us look at a high level about the potential fiscal impacts to the city's general plan based on the development of the alternatives. And alternative A, just want to note again that it's focused mostly on economic growth and economic development and job growth. Residential and commercial uses are more favorable than industrial uses as they provide greater property tax and sales tax revenues. Based on these, it is estimated that alternative C would create the potential greatest net fiscal surplus, and alternative B would generate the least net fiscal surplus. Just a note about residential uses, they also result in increased operations and maintenance costs due to services such as police, fire, and infrastructure maintenance. But despite this, alternative C, which has the highest mix of residential, it still could potentially generate the greatest net fiscal surplus. So thank you. I'll turn it back to Erin Morris.
As we wrap up the presentation, I want to remind the council about why we embarked on this study and what we're hoping to hear from the council tonight. The purpose of the study is really to implement what the general plan of 2015 called for, which is looking at this 1,400-acre area as a future jobs location in Vacaville. Even since we started preparing the study, there have been some job losses in our county, some job losses in Vacaville, and so really at the heart of this is looking at how much economic development growth makes sense and where can it happen, and that was the purpose of the three alternatives. I want to emphasize that the council is not being asked to make a decision tonight about, because this is not a specific plan, this is a study, and we're really interested in your comments. When we took this to Planning Commission, they had the same report that you did, they had a similar presentation. Those that were present, they unanimously supported alternative A, and a lot of the comments they made were about it providing the greatest amount of jobs and job growth for our city and for our county. They made other comments as well, but there was actually alignment across the board on that. To staff, that is the alternative that aligns with the general plan, but I also want to emphasize that should the council provide that, we need to know from the council which alternative you want us to kind of roll with, but all of this work of developing a specific plan is not before you this evening. That would follow this council meeting. And that would be a multi-year effort. We did some stakeholder engagement with this first round, but that was really as part of the study. This would involve a lot of robust stakeholder engagement and really a multi-year process. So again, tonight we're hoping the council will give us feedback on which alternative they think that staff should focus on as we work on getting a specific plan process launched, and reminding you're not making a decision about the plan, and that any specific plan after a public process would come to Planning Commission and City Council for an approval at multiple public hearings. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's been a while, a long time coming to get here. And I also want to thank staff for the efforts to also identify, along with our consultants, some of the things to help us make the decision and get through the Planning Commission. So I'll start, I'll open it up to the council. Councilmember Ritchie, you can start us off.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the work and effort. Look at the plans. I mean, my decision with what we have the last year in Solano County, but looking back the last few years, looking at the adjacent plan we have for Leisure Town, Green Tree, I'm extremely favorable and optimistic on hopefully option A. I mean, if we're going to take that land, I want the highest and best usage per square foot that would create income and opportunity. A year ago, the world was totally different. AI and the ability for machines, technology to take 1 million square feet. In 1970, there'd be 5,000 people working in 1 million square feet. Now there's only 30. I don't want to see land, the highest and best use, go to industrial buildings that are efficiently vacant. And that's not a good use of that beautiful land. I want to see people there. I want to see people have jobs, come to the community, will have homes that are adjacent. We need to create opportunities and jobs where people can come to Vacaville to work, to live. And the highest and best use of that plan is I want jobs that people have to be at. Just the jobs in that factory and in that park would be intensive to have people be on site. And I think that's the highest and best use. That would create more job growth and economic growth that can complement other parts of Vacaville, and there'll be a kind of auxiliary effects to that. So I'm very strong. I want to make sure there's good jobs and density of the jobs. Therefore, they find a great place to live called Vacaville.
And thank you for those comments. And I'm sure some of this also, I hope the comments can even be a little bit more varied. Clearly, alternative A is your support. A couple of comments, and then I'll go to Councilmember Chapman. I know this isn't, this is really about the direction we're going, and I know I, like probably others, received some comments from the public, and I think we heard some tonight, and we likely will. It's like, this has been the growth area. plan for years. As long as I've been on staff coming to council meetings, well over, probably 10, 15 years, the councils before us have wrestled with how do you plan? And we struggle with this because at the county level, county-wide, we're having these conversations about where to build, where not to build, what to support, what not to support. And this isn't new to the Vacaville region, whether it's incorporated or in the unincorporated. It may be that there's people, and unfortunately, that have not been part of the conversation. Look, if you live in the county, you're probably not paying attention to the city business. Totally get that. But at the same time, we have been debating between the city and the county because of Measure T that says, for decades, if you're the city of Vacaville, you're going to grow, and everyone else needs to pay attention to that. And so, one of the challenges that we have as a as a council, but also because we have to work with the county in any of these options, is: are we going to grow contiguous to our cities? There's debates even tonight in Business from the Floor that really aren't about this, but they kind of are. It's like you could talk to a lot of the farmers and ranchers who say, Vacaville and Fairfield, or excuse me, Vacaville and Dixon, this is where the prime ag land is, north of Midway Road. And there's a lot of information that's compelling. So it's hard sometimes, I know, to look at that land and it looks ag. But that's the designated growth areas for where we're at. Now the question is what do we do with it? I do believe I'm open to alternative A. Alternative B is interesting to me in the sense that it does have a kind of a balance. If you go straight to finance, what's the best one? Okay, best and highest use. I think you hit on it, and you have enough background in finance. I think I trust your position on that. But at the same time, the original general plan from 2015 has some design features that allows for how you extend Orange Drive, and it should have a certain look to it and a certain feel to it. And so it's easy to get torn between, I'm just going for, we need money, and because we're at a time right now where financially we do. But I do believe in my conversations with staff, all of them would be fiscally positive. The long-term impact of commercial is it's places where job creation can also create that economic engine. So I think that's the positive side, and I like what staff and our consultants have helped to frame what that alternative B is. And that's why alternative B has an appeal to me, because it adds the alignments that could feel good about you driving through it, right? It's not just big grids. I've driven through, we'll call it near Fresno, and it's not attractive. It's industrial, it's commercial, it's agriculture. So there are some benefits, I think, depending upon how the rest of the council feels on this. The residential piece can create a lot of revenue, but it also creates demand on city services. So long term, you have to hire more of everything. And so that's the trade-off when we think of economic impact. When we talk about residential and we have these mechanisms of CFDs, and all that's been a challenge to help offset those costs. But if we're really looking at the fiscal impact, residential can create revenue early, but it also creates long-term impact to city staff and city resources. Conversely, if it's alternative A, what I like about it is it's going for the long-term goal. It's going for the long-term goal. B has kind of the hybrid of the two. I don't believe that because we have our East of Leisure Town that we need to focus so heavily on residential. 2015, we weren't building out in Lagoon Valley. It was a project, but nobody ever thought it was going to get built. So here we are. We have a lot of inventory proposed. And so this is where I'm torn between A and B. Clearly, in the future, we would have to, these decisions are important because, how we align wastewater, You made that point, and I know that the county has talked for years because there's been discussions in the past. Well, whatever you're going to do, we're going to have to coordinate, because whatever the county's wanting to do, they're going to want to know, can we work together? Well, that's a whole other conversation. But where you align wastewater is going to be imperative depending upon where the flow is. And then my comments on the traffic is, we know that we've created impacts because of our industrial area. Amazon is there now. So one of the biggest impacts to, our right next to the unincorporated area, which is in our SOI, is Midway Road. Something that's important for us to take note of is STA is studying this now for a long-term impact, which is Highway 12 and Highway 113. Well, this was within the last meeting that they had at a committee meeting, which they're going to spend the next 2 years using our staff. Brian Oxley would be part of that. And we added Midway Road to that. And so that is going to be a component of that as we're looking to create an impact. I've heard from members of the Board of Supervisors that says, hey, you guys are creating all this impact on Midway Road. And if you're the resident out in the, out in the unincorporated, I'm sure you'd say, yeah, Vacaville, you created this impact. And it's going to have to be mitigated. Your chart shows that. No matter what happens, Midway Road has problems right now. So those are my comments. Again, I'm torn between A and B, but I think you got the gist of my comments at this point. And I do believe Councilmember Chapman is next.
Yes. Thank you. I'll be brief because I don't want to do any more coughing. Anyway, I'm leaning toward B. On one of your slides, and I'm sorry I didn't write the number down, where you gave underneath B, I believe B was the only one that aligned with the general plan. And there's some industry in B as well, right? Yes. And so pretty much I'm going along with what Councilmember Ritchie has already shared. And so I'm not going to say any more other than I'm leaning toward option B, alternative B. And I'm sorry, also there was a slide where you were giving the highs and the lows, and that included A and C. So that kept me looking at B. So I'll stop. Thank you. Councilmember Weil.
Thank you, and thank you for putting those maps back up, if you want to get them back up. It's just easy to see that. So one question I had was, I was surprised that there's park in each of them. And now the two that have residential, that makes sense, but like the first one that doesn't have much residential, it has a pretty big park section in the middle, I mean at the very tip bottom. Is that, is it required to have park?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So on the it was interesting to me to see that big section in the southeast side, I mean the southwest side, that had the park area in A. And the other ones have some residential, but the park in the residential is not that close. But so is it required to have a park section is my question.
For employment generating uses, it's not a requirement, but we were trying to, excuse me, hello? Oh, it's on? Yeah. Is it on? Sorry. It's not required, but we were trying to keep...
Turn it off, turn it back on.
Hello? Hello?
One.
Hello?
Test, test. Oh, they're dead. We have viewing. We have public at home.
Check, check, check.
Say it 1 second.
We need to wait till I think they're fixing it.
Sounds like other mics are hot right now, but yours is not.
Why am I still lit?
Try it again.
Okay, try that again. See.
Check, 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 check.
Test, test, test.
Okay. Okay. We're working on it.
Can they talk at that one?
Yeah, we might have to. We might try coming to the podium and see if we can at least just address it. We're going to pivot.
Test, test, test.
There we go.
I'm going to try to answer this question, and then Cliff will rescue me if I can't answer this question. So Councilmember Wiley, the question is, why are there parks in the industrial scenarios, and what went into like establishing potential park locations in the other scenarios? This is based on feedback we got when we reached out to industrial park owners and people that develop like large-scale, high-quality industrial parks. When you have a lot of jobs concentrated in an area, there's an opportunity to integrate ideally privately owned parks that serve as public spaces for the folks that work in the business parks and for regular Vacaville residents who are visiting the area. In the alternative A, that is a community park. It isn't being driven by demand created by the industrial park. It just looks like a great opportunity site for possibly the city to have a large park in that area, which the Planning Commission commented we still need some ball fields in Vacaville. We need some larger scale sports facilities. So it's really just to spur that thought process of what kind of non-residential areas do we want to build in the future? What kind of amenities should they have? On the residential scenarios, there are parks placed and sized to meet our current general plan requirements for park service areas and location relative to residential.
All right. The second question is, where is the battery proposed build thing in these? Are they smack dab in the middle? Where is it?
We have a different slide that shows where actually no, but that's on there. It is on there. It's the,
On A, B, or C?
Yeah, it's the gray hatchy, there, if we have a member of the audience pointing to it, that's the one that's outside the city. And there's another one that's closer to 80 that's shown.
Oh, I see.
Yes. That was something, good question. That was something the public brought up. These battery projects have come along since we started this study. Clearly, we'd have to look at the land use relationships between them and future development as part of a specific plan.
And the amount of residential would kind of be depending on that, too.
Yep.
And then you said when you first did the public input, you got a lot of things from grocery stores. There's no grocery stores in any of these, are there?
Oh, there could be in the commercial areas, absolutely.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, I don't know if I heard this correctly, but when you were saying that you were assessing the traffic, were you assessing the traffic, did he say for 2050? How in the world would you be assessing the traffic for 2050?
I'm going to ask our consultants to speak to that. Come on up. This one's working.
I mean, who's going to contradict whatever you say? And you get paid a lot to say it. So.
Well, I will admit I am not a traffic engineer, but we have read GHD's report, and from what we understand from traffic modeling, they use a modeling algorithm with an input for a horizon year that then, based on various factors of like the anticipated uses and the numbers, the anticipated traffic based on those uses, it would estimate the amount of traffic activity that would be based at that time. But we could provide clarity around the methodology for the use of how the horizon year 2050 factored into the math.
So then can you just clarify, which one would create the most traffic hassles, A, B, or C?
They would all produce equivalent amount of traffic hassles, though the extent to which they're different. So we can look into and provide a response later. But from the assessment, basically at most 2 or 3 intersections will remain at an acceptable level of service operation between all 3 alternatives, and at least 15 intersections would at least require improvement to reach acceptable operations.
15 would be unacceptable, or would need mitigation to get
It would need mitigation and improvements to reach acceptable levels. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the information.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stockton.
I'm glad that they brought up the parks. I want to know, are these going to be privately owned parks or publicly owned parks?
As a planning study, that is not determined. Staff's thought, based on research of existing large-scale industrial parks, is that in a non-residential area, these would likely be owned by private parties, developed as an amenity for employees. It would have some kind of public access easement over them to allow the public to use them and really for them to be an amenity to Vacaville. But that's not locked down as part of this planning study. It's still pretty high level.
Yeah, I have concerns with that. If they're public accessible parks located in a high commercial area, pretty close to a waterway, I think you're going to have issues with unhoused populations, potentially parking RVs and police enforcement, different things like that. I just see that as a recipe that we may that could create some problems. And so I would just say that if I like alternate A and B. What I would suggest is if we are going to have park amenities and things like that, I would prefer them to be on the border of like Midway Road, where the folks that live in the county aren't looking at a huge wall of some sort of industrial place next to it. So I would prefer to see those there. There's nothing to stop them if this whole thing is gray or light gray from implementing areas where employees can go kind of decompress or relax or get exercise. But I do have issues with, the potential ability to enforce some of the things if we have folks that are like camping there, living there, and it's not high visibility, especially after hours, depending upon how many people would be there. I agree. I think that this is an area where we want to create jobs. This is an area where we want to see try to bring revenue generating businesses and stuff like that here and provide jobs for our people. So those are my comments. If you're going to put parks there, prefer them to be private and part of the gray area. If you want open space, all for that. Let's be respectful of our neighbors and some of the folks that made their largest financial investment and weren't necessarily anticipating looking at a huge building across the street from them.
Councilmember Freeman.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'd like to thank everybody that's worked on this, and hearing that the Planning Commission was pretty much unanimous across the board on alternative A. I'm glad that they came to that conclusion, because I've personally come to that same conclusion, because as it stated, it is the most employment-oriented option. We need forklift jobs, we need plumbing jobs, we need jobs. We got a bunch of kids in our high schools and junior high schools that are going to be needing jobs not too far down the road, and hopefully we're not exporting all of that, or they have to go and move somewhere else. Also, I think that it's the least amount of draw on our public services as far as for what it's going to cost us to maintain versus residential, and more police, more fire, more everything from the city. So I'm looking at this as what's best for the city of Vacaville, what's best for our general fund, and so I'm for alternative A.
And I would also say that, at least on the park side, as you're taking some comments, we have a master plan for parks, and we're sitting at we'll call it a very low fiscal dollar set aside right now, trying to get Centennial Park done and everything else. And so while we're trying to plan for places, a lot of times our parks are planned for where people are going to live. One of the things that I have heard in the business community, so if you're talking, if you're looking at alternative A, one of the things that I like what it's tried to do is it's tried to connect, for one park, you could literally, there's pathways, and that's what people are wanting. I've heard it over and over again, whether they're walking, they're biking, is connectability. So making sure that when we're really even thinking of the 505 intermodal and how it all connects into the manufacturing space that we're looking at along Interstate 80, that's already, it's improved, it's just not developed. And so I think we want to make sure that that becomes part of any master plan, and that is that we don't create something that's disjointed. That's probably the part that I like about alternative A. I do have the same questions that Councilmember Stockton does, and that is in a very key location, you put a park. Now, if that is, I mean, we do know that, we're currently in an NRA, and sometimes maybe the alternative is that there's alternatives like with fields, but who knows? Maybe this is because it's a different kind of field. This is about trying to master plan for the future. What is nice about alternative A is it's the least impacting on city services. It just is, because what you're not needing to do is you don't have to have the same level of staff. You're not creating residential neighborhoods that do have a high demand. Short-term, early financial gain, but the demand is a little bit different. So that was on the traffic piece in the park. I do know that I've received a comment from those who may own land that would be near Orange Drive that is, let's just be real. Anyone who lives in this area who has paid attention to this has probably already looked to speculate what they want to do in their future because their land is inside our sphere. And so that raises a question for me and a concern as we hear about battery storage. We know that one is inside our annexation area, the other is not, and they both can impact it. The reason why I am also for moving forward on this is just because right now we don't have a say in the land use, in zoning. And so you could pick a plot in here right now, and a person who owns 100 acres, 200 acres could be approached by someone who says, hey, I'd like to build something there that we don't want or control. If it's not part of our control, where we have land use and zoning, they could, as we see, they just bypass us and they go straight to the state. So this does afford us control over our future destiny that we've been planning. So while we've been waiting, others have been speculating, and that's what we're seeing. And so that's why I also don't want to, I want to go on record and say that I am for doing this, but doing it correctly with our input. Councilmember Freeman, you had more?
Yeah, I just forgot one thing that I wanted to say, and that is that, I have a big heart for the agricultural community. I have family and friends in the agricultural community. My family farmed outside of the Sacramento on the southeast side of Sacramento for 6 decades. And, as a young man, I got a chance to work on the family farm out there, and, it was a great experience. But I also know the reality is a lot of the reason that a lot of farmers and ranchers are going out of business is not because of encroachment, but it's because of the regulatory community of which they have to try to survive in, with all of the requirements that are coming down from the state, the county, the cities that surround them, with a wide variety. And that's talking to some of our local ag people. They're in the same boat. They're tired of fighting it. They're tired of fighting the battle to control their land and farm their land, and it's just gotten to where they can hardly cut out a living in a lot of cases. And it seems like a lot of the people that want to sell land right now, especially the land that was brought into topic tonight on a couple of different locations, it's actually the landowner that wants to sell and get out and, go somewhere else and, do something with their lives. So, but I just wanted to put it out there. I have a big heart for the ag community. It's not like I'm just blowing over something here and saying, yeah, I'll take alternative A, but I'm taking alternative A.
All right.
That's it.
I'm going to go ahead and open up to the public for comment.
Lou Durfus. I live on Poplar Road, which is adjacent to this, I believe. I missed most of the presentation, but I heard one comment concerning wastewater and a lift station. I would avoid that. I would pursue getting an easement with the county, even if it meant purchasing the land. The trouble with a lift station, once you put it in, you have to maintain it, you have to pay the electricity to run it, and as we all are probably familiar, PG&E is raping us with their rates and their rate increases over and over and over again. So I would avoid anything that required a lift station and go with stay with the natural way of gravity feed. It's just a better alternative in the long run, cost economically, and I'm not sure which alternative had that or if that was related to this or not. But that was the only comment I heard that I was concerned about. Avoid lift station.
I caught the same thing. Yeah, thanks.
Again, I'm Charlene Schmid, and I don't count.
Yes, you do.
But this is what brought me here tonight. This brings absolute tears to my eyes. I can tell you what grows in each one of those plots of land right there. Zone it for ag. Our consultant said at the planning meeting, it's a lot of green space. Yeah, it is. It's alfalfa. It's orchards. It's the things that we eat, the things our animals eat. We need food in our future. And along with my not counting, it doesn't really feel like you're giving countage to the people that do work that land. I just spent $12,000 hiring Atkinson to come out and level my land so that my water runs properly, which I haven't turned off yet. Sid water going right down the road here. But we work this land, and we hire people to come in and work our lands. They count as workers, and they do live here, and we make so much of an effort to bring the people that live here that are not the big businesses. We're small, we support small. Paving it, this is our future. This is our food, unless you want it in a bag that gives you diarrhea for 10 days or whatever it is. This is what we grow and what we have here for us. Zone it, take control of it, but zone it ag. Keep it ag. It costs you nothing, right? Look at the other plans with all the dollar signs at the bottom. What's going to happen to my well water? How are my animals going to drink? I have friends that have to buy water for their animals because they don't have enough in their well anymore. I invite you to come over. I invite you to come down our streets to look at what's growing there. I personally, my business is Integrity Alpacas and Fiber. I am not open to the public because I can't afford to pay to have people come park at my house. To the county, not to you guys. I get that. And I am, again, like I said, very thankful that Pleasants Valley Ag folks have invited me to be a part of their space. We have problems, we have regulations, we have garbage we deal with all day. Like my being here today. I've been at work all day long. I have not been home yet today, and I have a full ranch that I need to care for as I leave here tonight. Drive down these roads. Amazon has impacted us, and I'm at Midway and Meridian. That's at Midway and 505. The traffic has changed, and I've also been there since before this plan in 2015. To expand. I've been living and working this land. I'm actively trying to sequester carbon. I'm a climate beneficial ranch. Everything I do is to bring carbon out of the air and into our soils. And the community of people that I work with are doing the same things. Meridian Jacobs, right down the road from me. Amazing operation that she has. She counts the people that work in those fields to harvest the food. They count. I'm sorry, I went over. I'm going to go home and feed.
You've been waiting a long time. Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Good evening, Mayor Carley, and City Council members, and all those in attendance. I'm Joan Marquand Wilsey, a Vacaville resident and a lover of our green spaces around Vacaville. I believe it's too soon to set up a choice of only alternatives A, B, or C from this Northeast Growth Area Planning Study. Tonight's staff presentation was made to the Planning Commission on June 16th of this year, and during public comment after that presentation, Chris Whitaker spoke about attending the public meeting a year before that to get input from residents about the plans for that area. He shared what was said by the residents of the area: let's keep the land as agricultural land. Chris went on to say that the advisors at the public meeting seemed to be repeatedly steering the conversations back to the business park and the industrial park options. But the residents want to maintain their land as agricultural, and so I say, please listen to those people that are now living and working in these areas. I believe there could be job opportunities developed that are agricultural related, and I'm no expert, but I suggest thinking differently about the future of the Northeast growth area. Can the farmland produce vegetables, fruit, nuts, and herbs to supply the local restaurants and the farmers markets that thrive doing that as their businesses? Can the horticultural program at Solano Community College be expanded to study farming techniques and partner with the landowners for hands-on experience? In partnerships with the landowners, can this agricultural area serve the young people in 4-H programs and visits from area school children to learn where their food comes from? So I say that we should pause our decisions about the Northeast growth area and imagine a future that preserves and builds on what's there now, and then return to our planning. So thanks for considering my comments.
Yeah, thank you.
Mike Geller, I'm actually in the county. I live on Kilkenny Road. So I live in the affected area. I guess my question is, when did this become a fait accompli? I've been following this process, and I think I'd like to use the rest of my time to have Aaron explain how we got here, because I'm a little confused. Some of us could benefit from that, I think. In other words, this is going to happen. One of these is going to happen, from what I get tonight, right? How did we get to this point?
Yeah, thank you. Is there anyone online wishing to comment? All right. I'm going to go ahead and, you going to speak? All right, why don't you come forward?
My name is Robin, and I live in this area. And all three of these options have my property. I just have 2 acres. But all three of them have my property either in a business district or an industrial. And since we have banned this battery storage stuff in our industrial areas, except for the one off of 12 down there, all these new industrial areas, is that going to open it up to more battery facilities possible but put in that area? Because all this stuff it's scary to me. I just spent my whole life paying off a property that I may not be able to use in the future. I wouldn't even be able to sell it if they put some of that stuff in there. So I don't understand why there's this big push to build over everything that's already there. I can understand building around in different sections, but it almost looks like we're going to bulldoze and just change everything. We need to keep farmland in there too. We need it for our food.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to go ahead. All right. Anybody else? So you're going to speak. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak? I think we pretty much, all right.
I have taken and watched how the city has just gone past where I live. Years ago when my parents bought, we were several miles out into the country. Now people on their dirt road, someone told me that they got a notice like 6 months ago that they're in city limits asking them if they want connected to the water. And I thought a lot of that might have been one big field, but apparently it's property that a lot of little people own and they're not going to have control of. and everyone's talking about jobs, and everyone's talking about ag land, but have you seen what's going on also is people talking about regenerative farming, because a lot of the farming that is done right now, it's not producing vitamin and rich food. And if you started thinking outside of the box, how they're talking about, and actually take and start aiming, maybe you keep this as ag land and you start going with regenerative farming and attract some industries related to ag. Some of them may be bigger corporations, but also the smaller ones. And because you could still use those small amounts and you will have a lot of different people employed. There's a big push because there's so many people that can't eat gluten. It's that they can't eat wheat. They can't eat the pesticides on everything. And so they stop eating the wheat. But now the alternatives, they're also being sprayed with pesticides, and they can't eat those. And so maybe if you guys thought outside the box and started going, okay, how can we actually go, okay, we're going to attract ag businesses, so we're going to have more regenerative farming or something like that, and you will get a lot of people there. And if you haven't noticed, when you go to the farmer's market and stuff, organic and regenerative grown and stuff, people will pay more to have that food. So you're going to bring in more money. And maybe the different technologies that go into that, maybe there's new technologies that need created to push that. Maybe you can bring companies here to help design some of the things that are needed to push that. I'm just, think about it. I know you got to protect also from the batteries and everything else, but people, like I said, they just forced out 12 generational farms in Point Reyes areas that were producing dairy and things. As you guys do that, and the threat for the gas station thing or whatever, there were cattle grazing, you're going to stop having access to food, and what's going to be going into those places are the alternative meat. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment portion of this and bring it back, and I do see a light, but before that, what I'd like to do is ask staff to, two questions that I heard from the public comment. One is maybe a little history, if you have some comments. And then the other is a great question, is how does it, so if this were to be implemented, what does it mean for somebody who owns 2 acres or 100 acres, right? It's not as if it's taken from them. It doesn't mean they stop doing what they're doing. Could you speak to that if your microphone works?
Okay, this is working now, I believe, thanks to Corey, our talented person who makes things happen. I could probably speak at length about the history, and there is a lot to share. I would just summarize it like this. As a community, Vacaville, like many California communities, grew pretty fast over a period of time. And at some point, when the council was wrestling with the general plan in 1990, and then eventually the big general plan update in 2015, there was this fundamental question about where does Vacaville ultimately stop? And where does the county begin? And a lot of that, and I wasn't here for that process, PlaceWorks was, not these two, but others from PlaceWorks, a lot of that was a really hard-fought battles about where does urbanity and suburban uses, where does that come to an end, and where is that line that when you leave it, that's where the ag is, and that's where the open space is, and that's where the outdoor spaces are. And this conversation was happening in all of the Solano County cities at that time, and at some point, actually the general plan update in 2015, the council accepted an urban growth boundary. That urban growth boundary hasn't changed since 2008, and it included the Northeast growth area. It didn't include lands to the north between Vacaville and Dixon. It didn't include lands to the east or south of Vacaville because there was a line. So I guess what I would say is that it's gone back more than 20, 30 years that Vacaville councils of the past, through a robust public input process and a lot of some consternation, decided that the Northeast growth area would eventually be part of Vacaville. and that things outside the Northeast growth area will not be part of Vacaville. So that's why the planning team, this is going to be the end of my 5th year very soon, that's why we've been focusing efforts on how do we get the planning for these growth areas started, because we know with the East of Leisure-Town growth area, that's long been envisioned for residential, and that's the East of Leisure-Town growth plan, and that's right now about 4,200 housing units that are different than the kind of housing we have. We've been working on that. Northeast growth area, it's been about, if we don't start planning it, we will end up with more things like battery and whatever. And so that's not really a threat, though. It's just that's kind of a reality. One of the things we've learned through this process of meeting with property owners and others is that almost like 2/3 of the area at one point has been tied up with land deals with developers. So there are some folks that do support change out there. As far as a specific plan goes, it's actually a multi-year process to create one. So it's a lot of process to get to an approved land plan that could be implemented. Through that process, right now, battery's banned in the Northeast growth area per the city's ordinance. Doesn't mean the state can't go around us, but it's banned. We could look at whether that's something that could be allowed or not. I mean, I have a pretty strong hunch that it wouldn't be something, but we could see that. But I guess if the plan's approved over time, as property owners are willing to sell or interested in selling, they have the ability to do that. But there's nothing about implementing a long-term land plan that involves people involuntarily losing, the rights to their land. So that's the whole premise behind land use planning and legal nonconforming. If you have farmland and the city changes the zoning and suddenly your land is zoned for housing or commerce, you don't have to sell your land. Of course, as some of the residents have very fairly pointed out, as things are changing around you, sometimes that actually does affect your decision. But again, no one comes in and says, okay, bye, I'm going to start building a factory on your property. It's just not how it works. And these plans take 30, 40 years to build out. To the year 2050 is actually not that alarming when from our professional experience, we think about how long it actually takes to plan, see things come together, build the necessary infrastructure, and bring all the services. It's a long-term plan. I hope that helps answers your question. I'm happy to add anything you'd like.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Councilmember Stockton?
Yes, thank you. The big thing I wanted to get out of that is this is not going to prevent anybody from their current use of their property, correct? Okay, and this is also, so this is like looked at like an overlay, right? So that if they sell it, it's overlaid use for this, correct?
If they sell it and someone wants to keep doing what's happening on that property at the time of the sale, they can keep doing it as long as they want to. If the buyer wants to make changes, they would need to implement the approved land uses and zoning that the city would establish.
Right, and so would that add value to their property?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so tonight's action really is just input. So what are the next steps?
We're going to take this input, and PlaceWorks is going to produce a final report. The study is a draft. It really is, a lot of it's complete, but we're going to look at some of the issues raised by the council, and the consultants are going to tune up the final report. Final report is really, we'll bring that back to council, and really the next step is to find funding, whether it's city funding, which is not very there's not a lot of that right now, or partnership funding or other maybe state grant funding to actually develop the specific plan. But we will be back to council later this year with the final report.
And this just helps in the city's long-term planning, correct?
That's correct. It gives us a direction. The final report will reflect the council's preferences at this snapshot in time based on the study that's been prepared to date, but it's not going to dictate the precise outcomes of the specific plan process. It more gives your team, your city staff team, and the community a sense of where the council thinks we should go with this, and if we are able to launch a specific planning process, we have a good understanding of where the council currently is in terms of those future land use preferences.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Chapman.
Thank you. Something came to mind when the young lady was speaking. We're in need of a second economic sustainability base, and that being we need to diversify. We need to have something else here to sustain the city and our services and all. And with the changes that are coming about with agriculture, the way food is being grown, that's a growing industry. And I don't think we've had any discussions about the possibility of how we can support the agricultural industry I think if we were to ask for a study to be done, we would be amazed at what has come about through the years. I mean, I was shocked, and I'll share this. My son, they just bought a new home, and inside the home, they're growing their food. Hydro something? Y'all are affirming. I'm happy to know that you know about it, but it's something that's going on. We have our vegetarians. We rely on the farmers to feed us here locally as well. Maybe we need to do a study into that industry and possibly build on it. We have the farmers, we have the land, open space, and.
Well, I would just caution that I think part of what we've just done, we've just adopted a strategic plan. And I think the right way to align that is to say, how do we look at, we will look at biotech, but we've added ag tech. And so I think that we've already given staff direction, maybe not to formally study and say, here's the exact thing we want to know. But I do believe that we've given enough direction through our strategic plan to say, what do we focus on? And I do know that there's opportunities right now as we invest in ag businesses that we just don't have time to talk about tonight. But it is, as we look at our incubator sites for biotech, what we've done is we've translated that into ag tech. And then we've also said we want to explore robotics, advanced manufacturing, and aerospace opportunities. This is the space to do it, and unfortunately, it's hard because it's not for wanting to pave over ag land. But I will just bring some context to this, something that wasn't necessarily something we did as a city, but years and years ago, this county passed Measure T, and that also adds to the context to say, okay, cities, let's not urban sprawl. That is what we have in this county, which means these discussions that were wrestled with placed it there. And it doesn't mean it takes away over the next 10, 20 years if somebody has a farm. But what it does do is it master plans, because we have to make decisions for infrastructure. So one of the things I would caution is that we don't just stop and say, we're going to study what we could do with this land. But it does, in the greater context, I think, bring up the need to really look at the future and say, and this is me speaking, this isn't about a council decision, but we're battling this across the entire county, and we're forced into, because of Measure T, to say, we're going to build here, and we've been discussing this for decades. Without Measure T, that wouldn't be happening to the same degree. So we're kind of stuck with the people who pressed us in the past. And I only bring that up in context, not to, of people's opinions one way or another. So saying, how do we get here? And the problem that we have in Dixon and Vacaville is when you start looking at ag land throughout California, South Solano County is not prime ag land, but Dixon and Vacaville is. It really is. So we do need to garner and protect what we can at the same time that we begin this planning. But this is just the beginning. But I do agree with you, and I appreciate that what we should be doing from our economic development strategy and our strategic plan is focusing on what ag tech can be, because we look at Gotham Greens and they're condensing going up, and that's a business. But who knows what the future can be?
Yeah,
but I agree with you.
resource that we have available.
I just
here.
don't think we want
Build on
to.
it.
I don't think what we need to do is direct staff to create a study, but to layer it into, it's an emphasis in our strategic plan. So I hope this helps. This is good information. I do appreciate some of the comments that I know that I don't like the fact that if the state unelected board can come in here and just say, you're going to put a lithium-ion battery storage that we heard earlier, what that does to anything around here, we don't have control over. So with that, I wanted to thank you for that presentation. Let me look up something here real quick. And what I'd like to do is, as we close and we adjourn tonight's meeting, I had a request from Councilmember Wiley, brought it to my attention, and maybe also if you wanted to share something as well. To close tonight's meeting and adjourn it in memory of a longtime planning commissioner, Jan Aldrich. And you brought that to my attention, and I agree. So did you have any other thoughts that?
I would just say a couple things. Many of you probably know Jan Aldrich or have seen her. She's been very busy around town and involved in a lot of ways. I was teaching at Cambridge School in the late 90s, and she was an aide in a school. And so she was very, very active and helped everyone and was great with the kids. After she retired from that, she went on to be a tutor and helped a lot of kids and continued to do that for many years. I last probably saw her at the Memorial Day parade, Fiesta Days parade, and she'd been a judge there many, many years. And she always came to all the veterans activities and POW Day with her little dog in tow. So I just found out that she passed last week, and she was on the Planning Commission for many, many years, and was always very involved in what was going on. So I thought it was fitting and appropriate that we all remember her, and her daughter is devastated, of course, at this time. So thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you for bringing that to our attention. And so tonight we do adjourn in her honor. So with that, we're going to adjourn this meeting. It's 9:13. Good night, Vacaville.